Hey there, We Can't Wrestle podcast listeners. If you haven't noticed, we have switched our server to Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it's free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple, and many, many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership, and it's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. So go ahead, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Highly recommended by me and everybody else here at the We Can't Wrestle podcast. Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome to the first We Can't Wrestle episode of 2020. A very special episode here. It's going to be a 2019 year in review in wrestling, where I'm going to have joined as my guests Mr. Archie Mitchell, Mr. David Gold. They are going to be joining me, and I don't want to take any longer to get this conversation underway, so let's get to our conversation about the year 2019 in pro wrestling. Myself, Archie Mitchell, David Gold. Enjoy, wrestling fans. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the We Can't Wrestle podcast. I am here, joined a special edition of the show. We're going to talk about the year 2019 in professional wrestling, and I am joined by two of my good friends, one Mr. Archie Mitchell and Mr. David Gold. Gentlemen, thank you for being on the show again. You've both been on once, and now you're on together, so
thank you for having us, Nate.
Tied 1-1.
Does that mean this show's going 6 hours?
I told them 24. I thought we might go a full day.
It might be like WrestleMania.
Yeah.
We were talking off the air, Archie. You mentioned Wrestle Kingdom is 2 days. I've been saying for like 2 years that they should do that with Mania at this point. Just make it a 2-day event. I mean,
it's not a bad idea. I mean, if you're going to want to rush through 15 matches, but yet you're making it 7 hours long,
right?
You might as well just break it down into 2-3 hour days, you know?
Yeah, and I think it would be better for the crowd response by the end of the show, because I think sometimes at the end of the show, the negative crowd response isn't. I mean, it could be the main event's fault, but it's not even necessarily the main event's fault. The people are they're fatigued, so they're going to be annoyed by every little thing that isn't what they want to see.
I was at Mania 35 here in Jersey, and after the world title match, not Rob versus Seth, I was ready to go home, and then I remembered, oh wait, the women still have the main event.
Right.
And they put on a decent show, except for the botched ending. I mean, that really wasn't Becky's fault; it was Ronda's, in my opinion. On the way leaving, these people were in such a zombified mode. A gentleman stepped on my foot while another one pushed me down the stair, and I twisted my ankle.
Jesus.
Because that's how in a hurry they were to get out of MetLife Stadium. And right. I didn't want to yell, because I thought if I fought or I argued with somebody, well, we're at WrestleMania. We might as well go for it. You know what I mean? Let's have a match right now.
I know
what Archie meant to say is he tried to get into the ring and like a security guard tackled him.
Right, exactly.
I think WWE would argue that WrestleMania is already 3 days, considering you have Access and then you also have the Hall of Fame ceremony and then you have WrestleMania for 7 hours. I think they'll argue they already have that, and then some people make it an entire week.
Right.
And
then all the other.
This year it's in Florida, so there are going to be a lot of people, possibly myself as well, going down there for a week.
And all the other wrestling shows and things going on around that it spawns, it's become such a phenomenon, you know, as far as the week of WrestleMania goes. Archie, I know you and I discussed it with you when you were on the show. To me, it almost seemed, as a wrestling fan growing up, it was always like my dream to go to Mania, and now it almost seems like it'd be too much of a pain in the ass. And I know you said it wasn't that bad, but
it's not horrible. But and it's not about, going to the bathroom, because obviously we're adults. We can get up and go to the bathroom and pick what we want to. And it's not about eating, because there's a concession stand behind you, or you have food with you. But when you're at home and you're watching wrestling on TV, if you choose to fast forward to a bad 20-minute match, you can.
Right.
When you're watching it live anywhere, whether it be WrestleMania or Raw, or you go to an independent show, there is no fast forward. So you're stuck sitting there watching it. So now when you sat through that bad 20-minute match and you look and go, wait, there's still 5 more matches on the card. You know, I'm ready to go home now because that took the wind out of everybody's sails. I'm ready to get, but then you remember, but I haven't seen the match I'm here to watch, you know, and it can become a bit of a fiasco.
Yeah. I can totally see that just from seeing, you know, everything on TV and reading posts from people and stuff like that. Like I said, I think I mean I live in Ohio. I think if for some reason Mania ever comes to Indy again, I'd probably make that trek. But I don't know if I'll drive 3, 4, 5 hours to go and experience that. But
well, like David said, if you're going to make a week out of it, or even a 3-day weekend out of it, like come on a Thursday and stay until Monday, then it's worth it because you're experiencing the Hall of Fame, the Access Tour, WrestleMania, and at its whole. Some people do NXT or the independent events. That was the one thing I regretted not doing while Mania was here. It was me, Pat, Petey, Matthew Gore, Henry Sugars, Matt DaCosta, and then Chris Trost was here, and a bunch of other guys, Clayton Garraway, Jamin Wooten, Mickey DZ. We could have seen like 14 different shows for little or no money because at the ending before the Hall of Fame opened, they had tickets for $10 just so they could sell out.
Right.
And the Ring of Honor show went down to $10 too, and that was only in New York. And it was like, why didn't we do any of this? I mean, granted, we hung out, we drank, we partied, but it's like, why didn't we take in the whole wrestling atmosphere?
Yeah.
And I guess it's because we caught up being together, but we should have enjoyed it because we're always me and Petey are always in New Jersey, so we know what's here. We should have done more in the wrestling aspect of it.
Take advantage of what's in town. Yeah.
Right. It doesn't come around here that often. The last time they was 29.
The problem also with it is that you might have were outside for a lot of it, drinking and enjoying, but then when you kind of went into the stadium, you guys split up.
Yes.
And honestly, if you're with a group of 5, 6, 7 people, and this is what we're actually going to try to do, is get seats next to one another. Of course, it doesn't have to necessarily be ringside, which would be amazing. But
of course.
I think that also kind of, not saying you weren't next to someone you enjoyed or whatever the case may be, and you enjoyed the time before, but when you're in a show for 7 hours and you're having a boring match, you can turn next to the dude next to you or the guy next to you, and y'all can have a conversation.
You could make commentary up, right? You
can judge. I mean, you can go, by God, she fell. You know,
right.
You can just do really ridiculous stuff and like just laugh and go, you know what, this match is terrible, but it's enjoyable because now we're making fun of it. Like, oh look, she just farted, haha. You know.
Yeah, well, I get that. That's the advantage for me and my brother when we go to indie shows or house shows or what have you to talk about it for the podcast. Since there's just the two of us, I always wind up getting the 2 seats together. So like you said, David, when there's a shit match in the ring or downtime or whatever, we just crack on the crowd or crack on the wrestlers or crack on the show or just crack each other, you know, and enjoy yourself. Even a shitty wrestling show is still to me the best form of entertainment anyway.
Oh, definitely.
Oh, I mean, you've seen some great moments on some of these shitty shows. You know, some of the biggest dudes jumping over ropes and crashing through tables and almost killing somebody. It's like, dude, he almost died. You know, it's like freaking awesome.
And he did that. And he did that for $20 and a pack of Newports. You know,
right?
I'm just saying that guy ended up in AEW in the Battle Royal. So obviously, they saw. They're like, wait a minute, 600-pound guy that can go over the top rope. Sign that guy immediately.
Yeah, we need him now.
And can we pay the guy with no arms and no legs less? Because
I mean, that was awesome though. How he was like getting kicked around. That was pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie.
That was horrible. It was awesome. I laughed, but after a while, I started thinking about it. I'm like, so wait, we can't offend anybody, but we can do this.
It just reminded me of Monty Python. You know, that was it. That's why I thought it was great. I'll bite your shins. You know, come back here. You know, it was just.
It's merely a flesh wound.
Yeah.
We, my brother and I and like 5 other guys got tickets to see House of Hardcore, which is Tommy Dreamer's company. And we went down, and of course, like you guys said, the first 4 or 5 matches were like really bad because it was guys we had never seen, And then in the fourth match, this 400-pound guy literally went on the top rope and pulled off a 450 spot.
It's always
and
that.
The whole crowd lit up yelling 305 live because how did you do? You know what I mean? You're over that. You can't be that big doing it. You're not Vader.
It's always that. I mean? It's always that guy on an indie show, though. It's always that guy that comes out and you're like,
well, he's looking to prove a point. You know, to tell the crowd I ain't shit.
You're like, what a shitty gimmick. Look at his, look at his physique. Blah blah blah. And then he just amazes you, and then you're hooked and you're a mark, and that's what wrestling's all about.
And then you realize he's 22 and he's not going to do that a couple years from now. So, yeah. And Vince, Vince signs him, lose 400 pounds, and then he comes out or he wrestles like Andre did later in his career. It's like Vince is just like, all right, you're just going to do some headlocks, some chops. You're going to talk funny so no one can understand you.
It's good shit, pal.
This is going to be your gimmick, pal. You're going to puke. He's going to puke,
We went to that show under the prompt. My brother's like, Matt Riddle's going to be there. And I legitimately, and I'm sorry, at the time, because this was like 3.5, 4 years ago, I said, who's Matt Riddle? And he said, oh, he's this UFC guy. He's great. He's hilarious. And he's this. I'm like, okay. So I go there, and Matt Riddle's supposed to be in the main event. And this guy comes out. I think it was like supposed to be the promoter because it wasn't Tommy Dreamer. And he's like, Matt Riddle couldn't be here because he's now signed under a WWE contract to NXT. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, so the guy I just paid $20 isn't here. But we did get somebody else on loan from WWE. And the next thing I know, Matt Hardy walked out. And I'm like, oh, well, this makes it even better.
Damn.
Did he push someone into lakes?
He did. He came out. I'm like, okay, so wait a minute. I get to see Bubba Ray Dudley, Tommy Dreamer, and Matt Hardy in the main event. I'm like, okay, you know what? This is worth more than $20. And that's the thing with shitty indie shows. You never know who's going to pop up on them. There's one coming now in Jersey where Jimmy Valiant's going to be there, or not Jimmy Valiant. The guy Boogie Woogie.
Yeah, Jimmy Valiant. Yeah.
Yeah, Jimmy Valiant, and I'm like, wow, really? I didn't even know he was still alive.
He was at the last convention I went to. He looks like the ghost of Jimmy Valiant at this point, but yeah, he's still kicking. It looks like he weighs 98 pounds soaking wet. He's like all beard at this point. But
here's the bad. He's 98 pounds. I guarantee you, he won't come off the top rope, but the 400-pounder will come off over earlier in the night.
The worst part is going to MCW and DiBiase's supposed to be there, and then you get inside and they're like,
and it's Virgil.
Well, he had a family emergency with his brother, and we're like, oh, okay. We got Brutus to replace him, and we went, oh, can we get our money back?
Yeah, can we not meet Brutus? David, that was after the whole Brutus scenario, right? After
it was after he was there doing. They got him to replace MDM, and we walked out to the main lobby. And we went up to the guy because they have those little cheapy boxes because they take cash. And we're like, can we get a refund? Because we didn't know MDM wasn't coming. And they're like, sure, we'll give refunds to anyone that's disappointed. Like, absolutely, because you replaced him with Brutus. Anybody. You could have got Sonny up in here, and we would have been happy. No, Brutus. No, thank you.
You could have brought the woman who played Sapphire. We might have been okay. Don't bring me Brutus tomorrow. Please.
Shoot, I would have taken Vicky Guerrero. If she would have walked in and went, excuse me, I'd have been like, yeah. That'd have been great. But no, you get Brutus, and I'm like, meh.
They got Brutus there for a sandwich and $5. That wasn't even a $20.
And then he's like, oh, $45 for my signature. I'm like, you've lost your mind, bro. I mean, sometimes these guys think that, like, you're going to, and it's like, Virgil walks up, hey, you want a signature? You want a signature? Like, you'll be talking to other wrestlers, and he'll just, like, squeeze in, like, hey.
Yeah, the last show I went to, I watched him finagle this guy, and he I'm just sitting there watching. You sometimes, as fans, and especially me as a broadcaster, when I go to something, unfortunately, doing a podcast, whenever I go to anything, I'm also in work mode because I want to talk about it on my show. So I'm half enjoying and half like hardcore observing things. And I watch this guy walking with his phone, and I watch Virgil totally hornswoggle this dude. He walks up to him, offers to take a selfie with him. The guy takes the selfie, and then Virgil says, can I get $20 for that? Like, the guy wasn't even intending on getting his picture with Virgil. Virgil just, I'll give you a selfie, and then asked for the money afterward, and the motherfucker gave him $20. It was like, damn.
I would put it out for like, here's $5, go away.
I actually need to hire Virgil as a salesman for me, really, because...
Yeah, I met him in 2005, and I was really pissed because it turns out to be a good thing, actually, because I found a Virgil Hasbro for like $15 at one of the vendors.
Mm-hmm.
And I walk over and I'm like, I'm going to get out of here with a pretty cheap, signature. I met King Kong Bundy, got my Classic Jack signed, and he only charged $30. Virgil's like, well, it's $40. I'm like, I already bought the figure, so I paid Virgil the $40. Turns out, of course, about 10 years later, I noticed it was a dually. So, it's two languages for some of us who don't know what dualies are, but it makes it a little more rare, even though the car looks like I sat on it and drove a car over it. But it's pretty interesting that how his charges just change all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and he's probably charging more now because he's under contract with AEW, so he's probably can get whatever he wants now.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. I'm sure that that banner he takes around with him that has him and Ted DiBiase on it also now says AEW on it somewhere.
It probably says AEW Superstar.
Yeah.
We went to another indie event. It's called Wrestle Pro, which is actually a decent company now here in Jersey because Pat Buck, the owner, is now a producer with the WWE. Kurt Hawkins used to be a coach there, you know what I mean? So, and I know a lot of the guys, and I went in there, and I'm going there to meet Mick Foley, the Dudley Boys. I know Jake the Snake is going to be there, so who doesn't want to meet Jake the Snake? And we go to take a picture with the Dudley Boys, and there's like 5 of us in the picture. Dudleys are cool with it because we each paid them $20 each, so it's not like we're getting it just for $20 for 5 of us. And the next thing I know, the guy taking the picture is dying laughing, and I don't know why he's dying laughing. So we're all having a good time. And he gives me back my camera. He's like, "Look at the picture." I'm like, okay. I look down at the picture. I'm like, "Came out great." He's like, "Look to the right," and Jake the Snake is photobombing us.
Right.
And then we got done with the picture. I'm like, wow, that's like the coolest thing ever. Like, Jake the Snake is in our picture. And I'm like, what do we owe you? He's like, you don't owe me shit unless you want another picture with me. I just wanted to do something. I was bored over here. There's nobody on my line.
Kind of the same thing. Kind of the same thing happened to me with Jim Cornette and Jeff Jarrett. I went to a convention, got a picture taken with Cornette, and then got a picture taken with Jarrett. Oh, well, okay. I got a picture taken with Cornette, and then when I went to get my picture taken with Jarrett, Cornette was also, kind of bullshitting with Jarrett at his booth. So Cornette snuck in the picture. So I got a picture with Jim Cornette and Jeff Jarrett together, and a picture with each one of them separately. So it was like, all right, well, and Jimmy didn't ask me for any extra money, so.
When they're nice, when they want to be nice guys and they're not really there for the money, they aren't asking for anything extra. They just want to be recognized that they're there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did Jarrett try to steal your wife, though? Just wondering.
No, that's...
And did Cornette bitch about false finishes for 20 minutes?
And make Rachel slur?
Good God.
I gotta ask you guys something. I need your opinion on something, because I'll be honest with you, I didn't find it racist. The statement that he made on NWA Power, did either one of you guys find it as racist?
We discussed it on the show a couple of weeks ago. My opinion on it is, I think that the intent was not racist. It was a joke he's been telling for 30 years. It's a starvation joke. It's a starvation joke. It's not a black joke. And granted, it's out of date. It's a Reagan administration joke. However, the thing about the joke is, Lord, oh Lord, if he would have just said donuts or bologna sandwich or anything, any other food, all of a sudden it's not a deal. It's not an issue. So you replace the fried chicken with any other food. It's not a racist joke. It's a starvation joke, and that's. I agree. I think that it was overblown. I think it was a symptom of PC culture, and it was also a fuck up on the end of the NWA, because how many people? Yeah, how many people did that go through? And then
they went through their whole editing team, and they didn't put it on. They didn't take it out because they didn't think it was racist.
When Aaron is way too fucking drunk when we're recording one of these shows, and he says shit that I think is not going to go over well with listeners, I edit it out. I listen to it and I edit it out because sometimes that happens.
I think the problem is that everyone is very sensitive nowadays, and sensitivity is taken, a lot of people are like, for example, they're look, the Lashley Lana storyline is miserable. Okay.
Really,
I'm just going to point that out. I'm not because of what they're doing, how it's being presented, the scenario, the things that come along with it. It's already gotten stale. It's not good. They're trying to copy Liz and Macho Man. It didn't work out in a different way, of course.
Right.
But the problem is that people are saying, we really want the Attitude Era back. We love all this stuff. We want edgier product. This is what we want. Right. And then when they do it, I see thousands of comments. Oh my God, I can't believe he did that. Oh my God, I can't believe Lana's crotch was showing for 10 minutes. I can't believe. I'm like, are you kidding me? Sable had her breast painted with a handprint. Right. And people are sitting here crying about Lana's underwear and her legs being open.
Miss Kitty showed them titties on a pay-per-view.
Yeah.
I mean,
at least we have to pay for that.
Let's be real here, Jackie. Her boob came out every single match she was in.
Oh, yeah, right? Without a doubt.
At a certain point, it's not a botch.
Yeah, I think she did it on purpose.
What was her name in ECW? Every time she got in the ring, she bent over the rope, showed her ass.
Francine.
Francine?
Francine. Or every time she got a pile driver from Tommy Dreamer, because he loved pile driving Francine for whatever reason.
Nate, how did we know that name? It was too creepy.
It was really quick.
Everyone knows. I couldn't put a ring to it, but I also remember, like, frequently Tommy Dreamer would pile driver her, and every time it would be like, oh look, her skirt came up while he was doing the maneuver, But nonetheless, people are sensitive, and I think to Nate's point, had it been like something else, other than fried chicken, it probably would have passed.
I agree with you. I agree with you both. But this is the way I looked at it. Jim Cornette is a 60-year-old Southerner. And that'd be like if both my granddads are passed away, but my granddad would have been, right now, he would have been 83. So if someone would have found something that my granddad said offensively in this day and age, their main thought would have been, well, he's senile and stupid and he doesn't know what he's saying. He's just caught in an older time. Jim Cornette is, like I said, 60 years old and Southern. He's going to say those kind of things. That's his normal conversation. You know what I mean? That's just what he does.
Yeah,
and it's on the NWA. It's not like he was doing it towards somebody in, like, there used to be a company called the Urban Wrestling Company. He wasn't doing it directly at an African-American gentleman. It was directed at Trevor Murdoch. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, how upset could he really have gotten people?
It was definitely just a symptom of a current silly environment that we live in. Because I mean, honestly, I grew up in an inner city area. I grew up in the north end of Toledo, Ohio. I went to the high school with the metal detectors every day, and bars on the windows and blah blah blah. So anyway, I grew up in an ethnically diverse area. My friends were ethnically diverse. We're still friends, all friends today, even though we live far apart from each other. The point I'm getting to is, back then, we would make jokes about each other. And nobody took it offensively. Nobody took it the wrong way. We just did it because I can find 500 reasons to hate a motherfucker before I even get to the color of his skin. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I think that something happened along the way. I don't know what it was, where we've come to a point now where everything goes through this cheesecloth, and
yeah, but see, I wish I could say you and I do agree with you to a certain extent. I'm sorry for cutting you off there,
Oh no, not at all.
See, if it would have been, because I mean, I read every comment on every message board, on every YouTube post, and everything. You see, if it would have been like a predominantly African-American standpoint of he offended them, there was no black people saying that he offended them.
No.
These were millennials who didn't want to hear what Jim Cornette had to say.
Mm-hmm. And that is a good point. Most of it's so funny to me that most of the outrage about racism in this country comes from white people.
Right.
Like, I don't know.
But just imagine some of the stuff that wouldn't fly on TV now that we didn't even notice when we would watch.
Yeah, no,
like the Godwins had Confederate flags on there.
Or one of my favorite gimmicks. One of my favorite gimmicks of all time would never make it to television today, and that's Slick.
Oh no, not at all.
Akeem, definitely not. Nation of Domination, definitely not.
Well, I just watched something on YouTube. It was the Nation of Domination when they didn't know if it was DX or the Hart Foundation busted up their dressing room.
Oh yeah, I remember that with the graffiti
on the
and
walls and thing. And then during the interview, while everybody was talking, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels called Bret Hart the Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan.
And well, I can't say it on air, of course, but think about the when Booker T was backstage and Vince walks by and he's like, "What's up?"
Yeah.
Right.
That was only 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And Vince caught heat for it. People were outraged, but they realized that he wasn't saying it as a derogatory statement. It was he was close enough to Booker T.
It was to be.
But if he did it now, Vince would be
fired.
Gone from his own company.
They would imprison him.
And it was for the sake of comedy. It's just like a discussion we had on the show maybe 6 months ago, and we talked about our favorite comedy movies. You could never make Blazing Saddles today.
No.
Even though the entire movie, the entire movie is a parody of ignorant racists.
Right.
People today would look at it at the movie itself as racist.
Yeah.
The only way that movie could be made today is if it was done oppositely.
Right.
Meaning they took an all-black cast and threw one white person in it, or a Hispanic, or something like that. There would be no way for it to be done the way it was done in the 70s.
Right, absolutely.
Or 60s, or whenever it came out.
And to my mind, it's the funniest movie ever made. And what a lot of people fail to realize about that movie is all the jokes about black people in that movie were written by Richard Pryor. And all the jokes about white people in that movie were written by Mel Brooks. So it wasn't even, the black guy was writing the black jokes and the white guy was writing the white jokes.
Right. And Dave Chappelle. I mean, look, his show was on from 2000 to 2004.
Mm-hmm.
All of his jokes were directed at every single person, every single race.
Right.
And it was hilarious.
Yeah.
Right.
And nowadays he does some of that still to an extent, but he's had to tone it down quite a bit.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah.
So it's just, we're in a time where, and I think honestly, it's going to go back. Like if you think about it, the 90s was like, it wasn't just wrestling in the 90s that was like so out there. It was everything was wild in the 90s. And you got to think about it, in the 80s, a G movie nowadays is rated PG-13. Like I'm watching G movies and I see a nipple and I'm like, wait, that's not G, that's PG-13.
Right.
Things have really more sensitivity. I mean, if you even go back 40 years before that, I mean, they were playing with leather helmets and people were getting beat with switches. It's like you can't even yell at a kid in an inappropriate way without getting arrested now for child abuse.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the time we live in, and you have to be.
Yeah, you
have to be very careful.
I'm gonna say it here, and I'm not gonna edit it out because I'm fine with this. I'm fine with being this way. I hate woke culture. Hate it. Because it is, first of all, the first thing that woke culture is going to do is it's already happening. I am a humongous fan of comedy. I'm a student of comedy. I love comedy.
Great.
There are not good comedy movies made anymore.
No.
So to my point, what I'm trying to say is woke culture is stifling creativity.
Oh yeah.
And that's gonna be. I'm sad for my kids. My daughter's 21. My son is 17. I'm sad for them because they don't. Even if they were creative enough to write something really funny, somebody would shit on it, call it a not PC, and throw it out.
Edit it heavily and call it their own.
And it's sad. It really is, because like I said, I mean, it's just. They don't make you don't get to make good funny movies anymore. I don't know, stand-up comedy. I mean,
but we can have as many horror films as possible talking about the devil and Satanism Satanism and all that. That's okay though.
But we
That's
can't.
allowed.
We can't have a good laugh. We can't have a good laugh.
Can't have a good laugh. Can't see a good action movie anymore because if it's not and ladies, if you're listening, pardon me, if there's not a female lead that's just as empowered as the man, then you made the women feel bad.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Archie's sleeping on the couch tonight. Further news.
No,
his wife listens. You
say writers are stifled. It's the truth though, because look at wrestling as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we wrote Lashley and Lana. Okay, it's a white woman. It's an African American man. Rusev is Bulgarian. No one should be offended by this. Nobody is. We're saying it's bad writing. We're not calling them, saying anything bad about the characters.
Exactly.
But I will say that Lana is the shittest actress in the world. She can't. She screams way too much, and
When the story started, I was intrigued, and about 3 weeks in, I was done with it.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, oh, this could be good. Nope, not at all. Not cool.
And then this week,
the problem is that there's no more. Everything is. The shock factor is gone because you have everything on the internet, and then she's on Total Divas, which is where she lost her accent to begin with. So WWE just gave up on her Russian accent entirely because she didn't do it on the show.
Oh, and nobody.
And like 3 weeks from now, you're going to see Lana with her husband Rusev on the show on Total Divas, and it's going to be like, oh, all right. So I thought they were divorced. So it's gone. Like the kayfabe, it's not what it used to be.
But look at this now. Okay, except for her being a shitty actress and her being on Total Divas, we're not offending anybody. And then this week they pull off that god awful main event skit that they did, and they bring little Liv Morgan out, who waited 6 months to come out and do anything. And she tried her best. She actually did put up a compelling role as the love interest.
She's good. I like Liv. She's really good.
But then, did you see what everybody's complaining about?
It's the lesbian,
right
thing.
No one why wasn't Sonya Deville offered this role? Because she's actually a lesbian. Well, here's why. Because I wrote this on a message board to someone who was complaining about it. I said, well, Liv Morgan happens to actually be a very talented wrestler. Oh, Liv Morgan is a talented wrestler. And they gave her a role that they thought that she can do. On the same part, Sonya Deville is a great athlete and wrestler. And if she's given the time to speak and to actually wrestle, she won't have to get over on being a lesbian. She can get over on being a real athlete.
Yes.
She doesn't have to use her sexuality or sexual preference to be, oh, I'm Sonya Deville. I was the lesbian in the Lashley angle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why complain about that? Nobody complained when Will and Grace had a straight actor playing a gay guy. For all those
the problem
years.
is they're not letting the angle play out yet either, because we don't know. Because it could go one of two ways. It could be, okay, she really truly is a lesbian. Okay, fine.
Right.
Or it could go the opposite way, where she just came out to fuck the wedding over.
Right.
And she's on Rusev's side.
Right. Or,
which is what I'm thinking of where it's going.
But see, that's what worries me, David, because they could very easily ruin this. Because if we think back to a couple of years ago, they tried this with Rusev and Lana, with Dolph Ziggler and Summer Rae. And all that ended up happening is Summer Rae got fired and Dolph Ziggler went into purgatory.
Well, if they had they done it the appropriate way, you had two ways you could have done this whole thing. First of all, you ruined Nikki Cross completely. You got her out of Sanity, which was a tremendous group, and you screwed all that up.
Let Sanity go their separate ways too. They didn't even leave the group together.
It was terrible. When you could have kept them together on the main roster for a lot longer, and Nikki Cross would have been great. Or you could have made Nikki Cross Sister Abigail, because she's just as crazy enough to pull it off. In fact, I would say she's better at pulling it off than Liv would have been. Or you could have had Liv Morgan be Sister Abigail, but that's what everyone expected. So now you're getting the shock factor. And look, I wasn't on board with The Fiend at first. I hated the Mr. Rogers feel. But then when they started kind of going into how deep it was and how, they were kind of digging into, he's kind of got a multiple personality and all that stuff, it started coming out. And at first, no one, it was 50-50. There were a lot of people that were like, oh, I love it. This is great. Then there was another 50% that was like, what is this BS? Right. Like, what is going on here? Are we doing I mean, is this Tom Hanks?
Right.
So to me, it would have been a better opportunity for them to make one of those women on his side, but they should have done that a little while ago, because now it doesn't make sense for him to have a valet.
Yeah, and you've screwed the pooch with both of them as far as going that way too.
And they can't use the system. I don't know if either one of you are aware of this. I'm sure you guys watch a lot of YouTube. I know I do. I've watched like what Culture and Cultureholic and things. A young lady who was an independent wrestler like 2 years ago went and trademarked the name Sister Abigail, and it uses it as her character on the indies, hoping the WWE would have signed her. And that's why they have to call it Abby the Witch now, not Sister Abigail.
I see.
So
that's interesting, but we all know that money talks. So
Vince offered her thousands and thousands of dollars to give it up and to let him have the trademark. She told him, "No, I'll only give it up if I can get a job, and then you can have the trademark. And even if you fire me, I won't take it back." And and he said because she's really green and not WWE material. And he said, "There's no way I can offer you a job. You're holding the copyright ransom, basically."
Right.
Honestly, sometimes I question Vince's decision making on talent to begin with, but
that's true.
A whole nother discussion.
That's true. He's the genius that pushed Roman Reigns for years and years.
So
there's a lot of people that will question some of the guys that he's either ruined, like what he did to Eugene. Tremendous talent, and he gives them that type of storytelling.
I will say this: Eugene did make it work. There was just nowhere else for him to go after that. I mean,
I believe his name was Nick Denmore, or what is it?
Dinsmore.
Nick Denmore.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
So I believe he would. I mean, he would have. I mean, he was a world champ in the Indies and tremendous talent and great in the ring. And I get it. He did make that work, but
if they could,
once you did that, there's no going back from it unless you did a story where he got fixed somehow. If they
could have with him, if you go back and watch, he and Rob Conway would have been an amazing tag team of some kind, because they were the ones that actually did the Conquistadors gimmick. In I think 03. It was like 03, 04. It was before the Eugene gimmick. But when they tag teamed as the Conquistadors, they were a great tag team. So, you could have had those two guys in a great tag team, and instead you give Rob Conway the stupid French sympathizer gimmick, and you give Nick Dinsmore Eugene.
Don't forget that.
Yeah, the con man.
Just Mr. Ass all over again.
Yeah, I did like that entrance music though. I thought that entrance.
Yeah, the entrance music was fine.
It was like a Randy Newman song.
About the entrance music. I think you're talking about.
It's the
look at me.
Just look at me. It's like a Randy Newman song.
Yeah.
Is that the one when he did the Chuck and Billy gimmick? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, pretty much.
No, hold on. I gotta find it. Let me see.
You look so good to me. Oh my goodness, that was terrible. And Billy Gunn hated it so much, but he still played along with it. But that was just. What did they do to Chuck Palumbo? Oh my poor guy.
You mentioned the chemistry that he had with Rob Conway, Nick Dinsmore. And that's because they did have chemistry because of the indies. Rob Conway, Nick Dinsmore, and the Basham brothers, Doug and Danny, owned OVW, which was the WWE development development for WWE in the long term. And they all worked together as a four-man group, and they actually were stealing the show. And that's why they got called up. But then to do what they did to, like you said, Nick Dinsmore and Rob Conway, which I just found the song, here, David.
No.
Just look at me.
Oh, that one? Yeah, it's terrible. That's even worse than the other one I just sang.
Now,
for those of us who haven't watched, though, on the network, they do have some OVW on there.
Yes.
And there's a lot of good shows, a lot of good crossovers from the main roster on there. There's a Taker match on there, and he doesn't wrestle off the main roster very often. Right. There's some good stuff.
Yeah,
on there,
he did one of their Six Flags shows to help out, because they used to do shows at Six Flags. Discussing 2019, I guess if I'm going to roll into a story to discuss, let's start off by talking about, and I'm sure we're all going to have varying opinions here, and that's what this is about. Let's talk about AEW.
Oh, I'm so happy you're starting here.
It's a great place to start because
Yes,
I'm going to have a
is.
difference of opinion between both of you on this one.
David, would you like to start?
It depends on what he means. Are you asking
But
about
what
AEW now?
I'm asking is, okay, what I'm asking is, I guess I'll sum it up this way. Super excited about the beginning because it was like, okay, we've got a major wrestling corporation backed by a billionaire. Let's see what happens because, those of us like us guys that lived through the Monday Night Wars,
Yep.
This is what we love, competition in wrestling. So we're looking at, 14, 15 weeks later after the debut. Okay.
October. Mm-hmm.
When we started to now, what's the assessment so far?
Okay.
My humble opinion is that AEW pushed the envelope. They put a lot of emphasis and a lot of work because I was one of the ones that was lucky enough to go to their first show in DC. Amazing atmosphere. The atmosphere was amazing. The fans were popping the entire show. You don't see that at a lot of the WWE events because I've been to a lot of those as well. I would tell you, in terms of the women's division, WWE has them trumped tenfold, but that's only because AEW hasn't signed enough talent yet. Of course, the controversy of obviously, I don't want to go into detail on that, but the controversy of the women's division there.
The man one?
Yeah, I get sure. I just think that WWE has a better women's division, but also WWE has they have a lot of more years on AEW, and I think at first Cody was very zoned in on I'm going to compete, I'm going to beat WWE, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and then eventually he kind of just thought to himself and said, look, I want to be the alternative. I'm not worried about what they're doing. And to me, the first couple shows had a lot of shots at WWE, right? He breaks the first pay-per-view, breaks the chair with the sledgehammer, right? On his entrance.
Which was cool.
Which was great. The first show was amazing. The atmosphere was great. The Omega Moxley stuff, Moxley showing up, amazing, good stuff, great show. It's died. The hype has died out a little bit up till now. But my assessment is that the AEW is somewhat in the wrong direction lately because they haven't built their stories, but has WWE either, right? So, but right now, because of WWE having the network and all that going for them, AEW is not able to compete with those type of things right now. And I think right now they're more of an ROH. They're more of a on Wednesdays, it's nice to have both. I'm ecstatic because that gives opportunities to more people to get in. And it gives, but it's not a competition at WWE, and it won't be for several years until they start really building the stories and building the characters and signing some more talent. And you're going to need some more people outside of Moxley and Jericho. You know what I mean? You're going to have to get some bigger names, and that's what they're trying to work on, but it's going to take time. And yeah, they might have a billionaire backing them, but it's the billionaire's son that's backing them.
Right.
But this is different than what Ted Turner did. Ted Turner said, "You do what you want," whereas this guy's heavily involved, and he doesn't like when things happen. Of course, like the Cody chair shot. When he saw that, never again. That's never happening again.
Right.
He's too heavily involved, which could also hurt the show as well. Yeah, I'm going to stop there and let Archie give his opinion.
Archie?
Well,
we can debate after we've all given our.
I have to say I'm a fan. From a fan standpoint, I have enjoyed the product to a certain extent. I'm kind of leaning 50-50 on the product because All In was absolutely amazing. Even though that was without the AEW banner under them, they were just the Elite putting on a pay-per-view. Double or Nothing, finally under the AEW banner, was great. and then everything else they were starting to do and get, to propel themselves into the first show on television was absolutely perfect. Yes, there was controversy with the women's division because of Nyla Rose, and I believe I talked about this with you, Nate. I feel that it's wrong, and it's not because I feel that it's wrong because she's a woman who used to be a man. That is not what my stance is. I feel that it's wrong for her to be competing at the stage that she is right now, still being so green.
Right.
I don't feel that she protects the rest of the women on that division enough. I don't feel that she does anything except to try to get herself over. So in that essence, you're willing to kill somebody just so you can become this monster. Well, guess what? There's already a monster on that roster named Awesome Kong. She's been doing it for 15 years, and she protects everybody when she does it, too.
Absolutely.
And that's why she's awesome. Anyways.
Right. Exactly. Awesome Kong should have been a big star in WWE, but she got pregnant and had to leave. Okay, great. But she's got another opportunity here. And Nyla Rose, who almost killed Riho on Wednesday by putting her through a table very unsafely, should have been made to come up at least in the ranks or on the independent scene, rather than Cody Rhodes going, you know what? She's different because she used to be a man. Let's use her. You know what I mean? That's where I feel they're wrong in that essence.
I agree. I agree to an extent on that one, but I also think that WWE does that a little bit as well.
They do.
But...
No, I agree. They do. Zach Allen to be one of, they used him for being only having one leg, but the kid was amazing. So at least he, was able to do things and freak people out when he did them. All I see with Nyla Rose is cringe. And again, it's not because of her being a woman who used to be a man. I just feel she's going to kill somebody one day. And then everybody's going to look around and go, oops, and that's going to be it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Put her and Lana in the ring. That'd be a great match.
Yeah, exactly. From a different standpoint, though, product has been good. I've seen people say it's low budget. They're too. It doesn't look right. No, they're not low budget.
This week's show, it's funny because I don't mean to cut you off, Archie, but this week's show actually to me was the best looking of the show since they've been on TV.
Because they were in a small arena.
Yes, I like wrestling shows in a smaller arena.
So do I.
And I thought this week's show looked really cool. Gold. Yeah, I thought this week's show looked really cool.
Being at their first show, I will tell you. First of all, they spent most of their money on pyro and Cody's, but the show did not look low budget at all whatsoever. The problem is that I don't know if it's whom they hired or what can't. We're spoiled, right? WWE has the most amazing camera angles.
Yeah.
Like, if somebody farted and it went into the air, you would see it in the WWE.
WWE,
did he just fart?
WWE's production team is on the level with the NFL's production team.
Oh, yeah, right.
If I went on TV on WWE and I farted, I wouldn't be able to hide it. Like, they'd be like, did this Fox just move?
Oh, and they would be all right? They'd put a little bubble next to you. David Gold just farted.
Is that a golden fart I see?
Moved, But in AEW, it was like, and even in the crowd, because we had really good seats, but we were watching the big screen in intervals, because when they went to certain parts of the arena, you had to, right? Mm-hmm. So we're watching, and it's like the camera would be on the canvas, and then it would go boop, and then we would miss a maneuver, and then it would jump to the wrestlers. So they were kind of just getting their stuff in order. So I don't know if it's who Cody picked or whatever the case may be in terms of the production crew, because we got pretty spoiled. When you go back and watch some old wrestling, when you go back and watch some good stuff, some independent days back in the 80s, because WWE Network really only goes back to, like, I think they have a couple shows from the 76, but most of the WWE stuff on the network goes back to like 85. But when you go like really back, like when they were in Shea Stadium, look at some of those camera angles, and you're sitting there going, we're so spoiled. We're like, wow. Like, I'm looking at Andre's ass right now.
Oh, yeah.
Really? Like,
dude, go back and watch old ECW from 95, 96, and you'll be like, I used to watch this? You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, just go ahead and watch a promo with Kevin Sullivan and Kamala and shit.
Right.
It's like, oh, we're going to destroy Hogan. And it's like, wait a minute, is this WWF again?
Right.
What are we doing here?
Right. So again, it's not the production. Their production is fine. And David, I will agree with you that it's not the billionaire who's backing them. It's the son of the billionaire. But this isn't TNA where Dixie Carter was spending mommy and daddy's money. The son actually has control over the money. He can say and do what he wants, but he is way too involved. I mean, there's a video circulating of him delivering a stunner after a show went off the air, and it's like, dude, go sit up in the skybox and watch the damn show.
He's the Jerry Jones of AEW.
Yeah, you're too involved. But see, this is the other qualm that I have with them. Again, I'm a fan. I watch NXT and AEW every Wednesday night, whether it's on DVR or on my phone or whatever. They need to get away from being a T-shirt company, because that was what everybody was calling them before they started. And what I mean by that is, and I wrote this on Facebook a couple of weeks ago, Chris Jericho says a little bit of the bubbly, and the very next day there's a little bit of the bubbly T-shirt out, and it sells thousands.
Mm-hmm.
The Young Bucks decide, well, we just want to do a T-shirt because we're going to put a deer on the T-shirt and put Young Bucks 2020, and it's out the next day. But meanwhile, the WWE, Tommaso Ciampa walks out and says, Goldie Daddy's home. And 2 months later, we get that T-shirt. So that means they had to get a production team together to make that shirt, and do it. My point is, I know Pro Wrestling Tees owns a little bit of stock in AEW, but until they stop making those T-shirts that mass-produced and that quickly, they're always going to be a T-shirt company. And people are always going to just look at them as, give us money. It's a money grab.
I hate to disagree with you here on that one, though, but the WWE does make some shirts pretty damn quick. And on top of that, every episode I'm watching, 50% off on the shop. 25%.
No. I didn't. No. That's not what I said.
It's the same thing, bro. It's way more.
No, you're right. It is a money grab from the WWE, but we've been watching WWE for over 30 years. So if they decide they want to reach into our pocket to get that new Undertaker shirt, they can. You've only been around for 3-4 months now, maybe a year, because All In is about to have their anniversary in another few months.
They've been open for a year. They celebrated it a week ago. So
okay,
yeah.
They've been open a year, and every day you've got a new T-shirt or a new gimmick that you're pulling out. But meanwhile, I'm not like Nate said, they're not getting a foundation on their storylines. Is Cody in a feud with Chris Jericho, Maxwell Jeffrey Friedman, or with the Dark Order? Because he's been in a feud with all three of them in the last couple of weeks, and I don't know which way he's going.
Right.
And it's a cluster.
And that
cluster.
Dean Ambrose, pardon me, John Moxley.
Let's call him Moxley. Let's call him John Ambrose. That sounds like a porn name.
Yeah. But I mean, is he going to join the Inner Circle? Does he want a world title shot? Is he still feuding with Omega? It's like, what, you didn't end anything and restart something new. You just went into it. I need continuity, or I need closure, because as a wrestling fan, without closure, we sit there with questions.
And that leads into my critiques. I have critiques and I have likes, and I'll start with the things that I like. I have enjoyed. I'm a huge mark for Chris Jericho. He's in my top 3 wrestlers of all time. I'm always going to enjoy Chris Jericho, even though he does kind of look like Randy the Ram now. But
I just said Mick Jagger, but anyway.
I just made a Chris Jericho custom, and I had to use a Jim the Anvil Neidhart body so I can get the fat stomach and the muscles and things.
Did you cave his chest in?
No, but the Anvil body has that. It's a puffy stomach with a caved-in chest, and then he's got the elbow movement.
Mm-hmm.
It's perfect for Jericho.
Yeah, baby, it's a little bit of the bubbly.
Yeah.
The Jericho's been great. Most of Cody has been great. MJF's been great. There are great things about the show. My critiques about the show would be this. First is, I think that being a wrestling fan since '83, the way that I know wrestling, and again, this is like, okay, I'm not old guy screaming at the clouds here, but I want and that's why I liked this week's show a little better than I've liked a lot of the shows lately, in that I want on TV, I want shorter matches and more story to lead me to a pay-per-view. A lot of what we've gotten in AEW, when I watch the TV show, and Raw, I criticize Raw for the same thing, so I'm not shitting on AEW any more than I would shit on Raw. the matches on Dynamite are too fucking long. Every match can't be a 25-minute main event.
Right. You can't get a 5-star classic out of everybody.
Right.
It's not going to happen.
With 20 high spots. And that is first of all, that's my biggest problem with the show is sometimes it loses my attention because when I'm watching a wrestling TV show, not a pay-per-view, my mind works differently when I'm watching a pay-per-view because those are the matches that are resolving the issue. I don't want to watch 4 25-minute matches on a TV show. I want to watch 8 or 9 shorter matches, or maybe 6 shorter matches, and then maybe 2 longer matches. And I want to see some story. I want to see some build. And then the other thing to what you guys were I think you were heading there earlier, the creative direction. And you said, David, it's a cluster. And I think the reason is because AEW has the same problem that WCW did back in the day. There needs to be one person that at the end of the day, the script goes through. You have the Young Bucks booking the tag teams and Kenny booking the women and Cody booking this and this guy. You can't that's not going to result in a cohesive TV show. And that's why, like you were saying, Archie, what is Cody's story? Well, I don't know because 6 people are writing stories for Cody, and we're throwing it out on TV.
Oh, and he might end up getting involved in what Brandy's doing somewhere down the line.
Right.
We don't know.
And that's not how wrestling stories are told. It doesn't matter. People can talk about it needs to evolve, blah blah blah. But Raven has one of my favorite opinions on professional wrestling, and that is in wrestling there are really only ever 7 stories.
True.
How you tell that story, who you're using and how you tell that story and how you come at that story can be different, so it looks different. But, there's revenge, there's the woman, you know what I'm saying? Like, but you can't tell all 7 stories with one fucking guy at the same time. Because we're going to go, what am I watching? I can't even keep up. So
I want to see some more DDP getting busted in the head with stop signs, though. That's what I would. Good Lord, he knocked his ass out. Goodness.
The bright spots of the show have been MJF.
Yeah, he's the best heel in wrestling.
Oh, without a doubt. I watch him on Major League Wrestling as well on MLW, and he's one of the best things on that show as well. MJF is coming up, but he's also the star of the show. Moxley has been good, but they don't really know what direction he's going in yet, which look, I'm a cynical wrestler, and like David said, it's on the internet. We see so much of what's going on. We know the inside information. There's no way he's joining the Inner Circle.
Right.
Next week. He's going to probably challenge Jericho for the world title now. Okay, great. Your 2 biggest stars are about to go at it. Great. But then, is Cody feuding with the Dark Order, or is he in a feud with MJF? Because now he's supposed to fight Wardlow, that's the stupidest name in wrestling I've ever heard of. Wardlow. Sounds like a schoolyard bully who's about to ask me for my lunch money. Oh, no, it's Wardlow. I mean, what? Really? Okay.
Hey, look,
he's about to fight Wardlow.
Pro Wrestling Tees would say that's a T-shirt. Oh, no, it's Wardlow.
It probably is going to be. If they listen to the show, they're going to steal my idea.
Maybe, and it'll be out. It's already on a shirt right now.
It's already on a shirt right now, exactly.
50% off on WWE shop from AEW.
Belts and shirts.
Yeah. It'll be
So, okay, that's what Cody's doing right now. Okay, great. That's the beginning of a great storyline. He's got to go through the bodyguard to get to MJF. Great. But then the Dark Order is somewhere in the background, which I think that's a decent storyline. But isn't
the Dark Order just a ripoff of what TNA did before?
I hate. I'm sorry. And I know, Archie, you said you dig it, but or a little bit dig it at least. I can't get on board with those guys. I don't know.
I don't dig it because they look like created wrestlers in 2K19. You know what I mean?
It just looks like a total ripoff from when TNA was doing the guys coming out in the masks and stuff.
The Aces and Eights.
It looks like Aces and Eights all over again.
Yeah. But see, that's what I mean, David. It feels like they're trying to be the NWO or the Aces and Eights. It's like, why are you bringing in new members? You have all these guys in Black Mask, and there's the 2 main guys whose names I don't even know because they barely mention the main guys' names. And they're doing these vignettes which are join the Dark Order because you've been bullied or because you don't have a purpose in life. Okay, fine, great. But then they're not wrestling. So how do I get invested in that?
Yeah.
And then our private parties, a decent tag team, but again, I think they're a little young, and I don't think they should be challenging for the titles. LAX or whatever their names are.
Lax.
What are their names? Prideful and something or another.
Powerful and prideful, or prideful and powerful, like something like that.
Yeah, they came over from TNA. They were really good in TNA.
They were great tag team. And I'd like to see a continued feud between them and the Young Bucks without the titles being involved. The guys that have the belts right now, SCU, are great. But I think they need to make Christopher Daniels their manager now, because Christopher Daniels really has no place with them.
Just another ripoff of TNA, sorry.
Well, I agree. They were known as a different name in TNA, and then Scorpio Sky joined them in Ring of Honor. But I mean, Daniels and Kazarian are great athletes. They're two of the best in the business. So why not highlight them?
I need some more Appletinis, though. You might as well just give Daniels his Appletini.
Well, yeah, I think he's going to turn on them eventually. I think he's eventually.
Just give him the Appletini, let him be the manager, and put his finger in the air, and that'll work.
I will say this: I mentioned I didn't like Dark Order. There are three guys in AEW that I actually like, and I think they need to keep building them slowly, a nice slow burn for about a year or so, and maybe give them the tag titles. The Jurassic Experience or Express, Gentleman Jack Perry and Marco Stunt and Luchasaurus are actually a great act. I like them.
They are, and
I have a Luchasaurus shirt, and they made it in 15 seconds.
and they did one of the, again, Raven, 7 stories. They did one of the classic stories in wrestling. You can't beat me in 10 minutes, kid. That kind of a thing. You know, the Razor Ramon 1, 2, 3 kid, or or to me, what sticks out the most is the Ted DiBiase Dustin Rhodes. You know,
right?
And that kid has amazing potential. He has a great look. And if he can work with a Chris Jericho, like you said, slow burn. If he can work with guys like Chris Jericho, Cody Rhodes, Dean Ambrose for a year or two, that guy, and Chris Jericho is a guy that is all about the future of the business. He is old fucking school. I mean,
without a doubt. Which is why he keeps mentioning that kid in every interview now, because he wants to get him over.
This is the guy. You know, when if anybody ever wants to, I don't like when people talk shit about Jericho, and here's why. I'll say this right now. I was always a fan of Jericho from fucking 94 when he was in Smoky Mountain until today. I've been a huge fan of Chris Jericho.
I agree with that.
To me,
his best gimmick was with Ralphus, and I'm sticking to it.
Oh yeah, love it. Love the heel Jericho, Monday Night Jericho on Nitro. But what I was going to say was, if you ever want to know what a professional Chris Jericho is, all you have to do is go back and watch WrestleMania 29, because that guy put over Fandango.
Right.
And
anybody who puts over Fandango,
right?
Let's get it correct.
And that's that's a professional. You know, he is invested in. Okay, this kid's over. Can I get this kid over? Because
why was that gimmick ever over?
I don't know. London, I think.
But I mean, here's the thing, though. Vince obviously came to him and he's like, "Look, this young kid, Fandango, I want movie tickets. Let me order them on you, whatever you want to call them."
Fandango
needs to get over. Can you put him over at Mania? And Jericho didn't even hesitate. He was probably like, "Yeah, no problem."
Yeah,
Vince.
whatever.
And he did. 20-minute classic.
Jericho's that guy that says, "You know what? The check's not going to bounce.
Right.
And I'm not going to get hurt by taking a loss to this kid." And like any smart professional wrestling veteran says to himself, if I put this kid over and he does get over strong, I'm going to make money with this kid in a year too.
Without a doubt.
You know?
And then they got completely disbanded that angle and then put him in a tag team.
Yeah, and it was
Tyler Breeze.
And now he keeps getting injured.
And now he's like Mark
Henry. He's been
Henry.
injured 4 times in 3 years. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Well, at this point in the show, gentlemen, I think we're at an hour, so we'll take a quick break for the listeners. And when we come back, I have like 2 or 3 more topics we're going to discuss, so I think this show's going to go long, and that's fine.
So like 8 or 9 a.m. Do you think? I might need to get it along.
You know what? I'm off my real job tomorrow, so I can sleep till whenever. So.
Oh, okay.
So we will be back with more.
But this was your real job. You know?
It's fucking gonna be. I'll tell you that.
It's gonna be.
We will be back with more of the We Can't Wrestle podcast right after this, listeners. Thank you. All right, wrestling fans, welcome back to the We Can't Wrestle podcast. And anybody who listens to the show on a regular basis knows that after the first break is shameless plug time. And usually it's just me shamelessly plugging our Facebook group, shamelessly plugging the Facebook page, shamelessly plugging, sharing us with your friends, checking us out on Spotify, our iHeartRadio, all the new platforms we're on this year. But I'm going to let Archie and David have a little shameless plug time here on the show. Archie is a member of, and I talk about the groups every single week on the show. Archie's a member of the Era and admin, and David is a admin of the Asylum. So, gentlemen, if you want to talk about the groups really quickly here on the show, do your shameless plugs. And
so wait. You mean I can't plug that I'm going to be doing a comedy routine at the Hooters?
And that too. I mean, comedy at Hooters. How the fuck great is that?
I mean, are you going to wear a Hooter shirt? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, I'm wearing the orange shorts and the Hooter shirt.
Oh, God, I would not come in there.
Why not? I'm a nice ass, man.
No, I'm good.
Yes, David and I are admin in 2 different groups, but we actually talked about this a couple of days ago, David and I. We came up as admin in these 2 different groups at the same time, and we've been friends even before that happened. I'm an admin in the Era, which is run by myself, Patrick Mansonetti, Petey Gleason, Henry Sugars, Alex Lancone, Dave Duncan, Tom Tardif, Rodney Lewis Friedman. Those are the admin. Rocky Turner is one of our mods, as is Mike Bedard. And with a group that big, that many admin and mods and whatever, we have to agree on everything. It's a lot of talking. It's a lot of back and forth debating. But it became a brotherhood, a family, and we have a lot of fun. Whether it be a challenge or a free raffle Friday or whatever it is we're doing, we try to make sure that we're all laughing and enjoying it while we're doing it, because if you're not laughing and enjoying it, then it's no longer a hobby and fun, it's a job. And that's not what we're looking for this to become in the long term of it. Yeah, it's a job because, we want to sell some things or do for our members, but it's not a job per se. Like, we all have 9-to-5 jobs, so it's not like we're going to say, oh, we got to kill ourselves to do the, it's supposed to be fun.
Absolutely.
Very nice. And he works at Hooters, apparently, on his off time.
No, I comedy routines at Hooters to get it right.
No, that's where he gets all the tips for the stuff that he can put up. But
yeah.
So we kind of discussed this on the last show. A lot of everybody knows. Of course, I've been an admin in the Asylum for a couple years now. Everyone knows the history where it started. We just hit our 2,000 member mark. We're now around 2,030 members in the group, which is a big accomplishment. We have 10 admins. Everyone knows who they are. I'm not going to go through the entire list, certainly. But basically,
I don't care.
What's that? What? No. But everyone knows who all our admins are. We have a very strong team in our group. Mike Zecca, Jamin Wooten, Nick Francis, Daniel Areola, Chris Maddock, Brent McLean,
Danny Nips.
Let's see, John Majewski, Mr. Poker, Mr. Deal or No Deal. We have just like the Era does, we give away a ton of free stuff. There are not very many groups out there. Shameless plug. There are not very many groups, and Cheap Pop, there are not very many groups out there that give as much free stuff away as these 2 groups do.
Without a doubt.
We value our members, and we look at it as a community. Obviously, starting next week, we'll be doing an Asylum podcast. It'll genuinely be probably around 3 to 4 people. Nate will be producing that for us.
Oh, nice.
And it'll generally be around 3 to 4 at first, but we're going to have guest stars and certainly like that. to get that going. Obviously, everyone knows our website is coming as well, something we've been talking about for quite some time, starting to get that up and running. Goal is by 2021 to have an actual physical brick and mortar store called The Asylum. So I am trying to make this my career. So lots more to come.
Well, I want to stress again to the listeners just really quick, and then I promise, folks, we will get out of our shameless plugging. Both of these groups are well worth your time. And like I have mentioned on the show when Archie was on and the show when David was on, if you join these groups, nobody is expecting you to spend a dime. Not
Nope.
one dime. You're not expected to join a raffle. You're not, and it's more about being a collector, being in a community, being in people that if you are looking for a certain figure, or you're looking for a belt, or you're looking for a T-shirt, or whatever, these guys, these are people you can trust to not fuck you over, like somebody on Mercari or eBay or anywhere else you're going to go on the internet. And my listeners, I will put my word, because I have quite a few listeners, and we have a good community too with the We Can't Wrestle podcast. You can take my word that if you are dealing with the people that are in these groups, you're not going to get screwed. You're amongst friends. It's a community, and again, like we've always talked about collecting. Of course, if I'm selling something or I want to, obviously I'm going to try to make money. I mean, that's the nature of the game. But nobody's gouging you. And nobody's taking advantage of you, and again, we give. The Asylum just had the Secret Santa. I have had shipments from.
As did Era had a Secret Santa.
Yes.
Anonymous had one as well. Nerd Closet had one, and I have to say, seeing everybody show their gifts, and it wasn't even about the gifts; it was the general joy around seeing everybody post up and saying thank you to each other.
Right.
It was like we were all together in one big house sharing Christmas together.
And that's what I mean? That's what I love about these groups is, again, like with you guys, we have, none of the three of us have ever, well, Archie and David, have you ever met in person?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet, no.
See, and this is what I'm saying. This is one of the good things about the internet and social media. None of the three of us have ever met in person, but I regard these guys as friends.
Without a doubt.
And we're all what I would say, aiming for our own goals, but the rest of you are along with us, and nobody is looking to screw. My essential thing here is these two groups are trustworthy, and I recommend them. I was just
about to say, there's a level of trust there.
Yes.
That after you gain trust from one another, you're hoping not to lose it. You're trying your best to keep that trust. And then that's why it turns into, David says it, I say it, we all say it. It turns into a family, because now you begin trusting people, not just with your figures, not just with your, with your money. I had a bad day. I need somebody to talk to, and the wife or my family isn't around. Hey, my buddy Josh Blevins is online. Let me go vent to him. David could say the same with Nick Francis. He could go vent to Nick if he needs to. You know what I mean? You have these guys that become a support system.
Let me go bust David and Archie's balls in poker. I mean, it's
exactly.
Just we're having fun. We're a community. We all have a common interest, and I think it's great. I think it's amazing, and I thank God every day that I discovered these groups. So, again, like I said, let's get the shameless plugs over and get the recap of 2019 back on track. I definitely recommend me personally join either one of these groups, and I'm definitely looking forward to that Asylum podcast, David.
Oh, yeah. It's starting next week, and some big things coming. And certainly Archie's invited to guest star occasionally.
Without a doubt. See, this is the fun thing also about these groups. There's no line in the sand like, oh, well, David's in the Asylum and I'm in the Era. We can't talk to each other, or we can't be on a podcast together, or I can't go on it. No one's telling us that we can't, because we all gained a friendship that no one's going to tell us we're not allowed to. We're not children, you know what I mean? We're grown adults, so we put that to the side, you know what I mean? So when you asked David and I to be on, I was like, like, yeah, of course I want to be on. David's one of my best friends on this whole thing. So, of course, I'd like to talk to you and David for however long, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Same thing. I mean, and like you were just saying, not even a shameless plug. We do events in the group, certainly. Better known as raffles. We don't like to use that terminology, certainly, but we do events in the groups, and there are a lot of guys that get in on them, and basically they get in with credit they've won from free events that we've done, or just so on and so forth. For example, Nate won $20 himself tonight. So,
exactly.
Exactly. It's been a good week for Nate, because Nate won $20 from the Asylum tonight, and Nate also got. I don't have a loose Evil Crush in my Hasbro collection. I won one of those in Archie's raffle this week.
A loose Evil Crush and a MOC Atom Bomb you took. I'm surprised you did not take the graded Macho Man.
I didn't take the Mach because I wanted that Crush. I've tried so many times to get my hands on one of those without having to spend over $100 on it. And
I agree. What did you have? 10 invested in the whole event?
Yes.
You had like 5 spots or 10 spots at the most. You know what I mean? It's like, David, how many times have we seen guys with one spot, whether it be $1, $2, or $5, win the craziest of items?
I mean, you got to go. You can go back to, Chris Maddock. I think it was on one spot gifted to him, or was it Chen? And then it's like, Z-Man has won like 3 Melloway Hogans off of one or two spots.
Well, I know I've brought it up before. I have an 80% graded Taker Hasbro that I won from Majewski, and I spent $6 on the raffle.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
How much could that sell? I'm not going to sell it. It's just going to sit here and be fucking beautiful in my collection.
Exactly.
But how much? When I
lots of lotion and tissue.
When I croak, how much can my daughter sell that for?
Heck no! You're going to be in the funeral and you'll be like,
yeah, she's going to be clutching it.
She's literally going to have an Undertaker at my funeral.
And it's going to be like that meme where it's like, all right, Dad, we're going to sell this. And you sit up like the Undertaker in the casket.
Like Mariah Carey at Christmas time. Yeah.
Like, what? You're going to do what now? That's the beautiful part about collecting. We were talking about that when you were away for a minute there, Nate. Archie likes to brag about my collection. So
yes.
I'm very modest about it because, I feel
he's modest about it. He shows it in every video he's in.
No, I just happened to do Glory Hole from the room a couple times, and everyone just happened to go, hey, can we kind of see the collection? Because I'm not up there that often, actually, and unless I want to go up there and just stand there and stare with tissue and lotion for a little bit. But but it's like, that's the beauty of it all, actually, as well. On top of that, if I croak, y'all have more than enough to keep, and then at least get me a decent casket,
Right. But, that's how I justify.
that stuff.
That's how I justify my collection to my wife all the time. Like, look, this figure right here, $500.
All right, well, I want to go to Hawaii, so you need to sell that graded Taker. You're like, fuck, damn it.
Yeah, I shouldn't get her the inside scoop. You're right.
Well, no, but see, here's the thing, though. You can't. It's like an insurance policy, though, because we're looking at something that will be worth money even down the line. You know what I mean? Like people with baseball cards, or when people went off with Beanie Babies and things like that. We didn't buy them at first thinking, oh, this is an investment. But once we started getting the higher end ones, we're like, oh, wait, this is actually worth more than I paid for it.
Right.
Or I won it in a route. You mentioned winning an 80% graded Taker. I won that same Taker, only not graded, from Majewski again, because he loves to have SA Takers.
I guess he does.
The guy has 75 Takers.
Right.
Oh my God.
And I won it MOC with a case, and I think there was 12 or 13 loose Hasbros that went along with it, and I had $10 invested in the raffle.
Mm-hmm.
So it gets here, I'm unwrapping it, the wife sees me unwrapping it, and she's like, what's that worth, and how much did you pay for it? I'm like, you're never going to believe it, $10. And she's like, well, then it's definitely got to be worth $10. like, well, it's actually worth like $400. She's like, why are we not selling that? I'm like, because why should we? We don't need $400 right now.
Right,
She's
exactly.
like, oh, fucking A, we do. But
You know?
that is the beauty of it all. And just for everyone to know, just a little kind of going back to throwing things out there. There will be a mail-away taker coming up from Majeski soon.
Oh, Jesus.
So, yeah.
Why would you? I got to start saving for that now.
Now, mine, it's not in the bag, but it's still, I mean, everybody wants a damn blue smell-away taker. I mean, I don't even have one. So, and he's got like 27 of them. So it's like...
Personally, I want the sunburnt Virgil, but...
Yeah,
I mean, or the Sabu rippled Hawk.
Yeah.
It's like, really? Where do you get this stuff, man?
He said it the other night, and I busted out laughing because he didn't say Sabu. He said Sabu, and I'm like, what the fuck is a Sabu?
Where does he get this crap? And he's like, oh, you know, who wants this? And he makes people want it. You're like, oh, I want that Hawk now.
I'll never
Sabu
forget when he
stars.
first started poker. He used to bring these galoobs out. It was 4 different galoobs. It was a Z-Man, a Ron Simmons, a busted up Pillman, and I think a Barry Windham. And no one ever took the galoobs. And he always offered them, and we would always like go for the bigger prize. And then one day, a guy wins, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll take the galoobs." And Majewski's like, "What?"
He's like, but finally, God, yes.
So then the guy takes him. He takes them off the table. We play another hand, and now here comes the next round. Guy wins. And he's like, so here's these 4 galoobs. And I'm like, how many of these loose galoobs do you have?
I thought he was going to go, fuck, I don't have another prize. I didn't think someone would pick this.
You know, but see that again, you win credit with that. You know, with Majewski, you can win a couple bucks. You can win $6, $7, $8, whatever. You know, I've seen him give away 20 before on Deal or No Deal. And that's another thing. He has Deal or No Deal. In the same regard, on the Arrow, we had Mike Vidar doing Takeover, which I think he's going to start that back up soon, with you know, giving away either credit or Era hats or figures. It adds a different element for people who don't play in the raffles and want to pay money. Because, let's face it, there may be 100 guys that buy into the raffles, but then there might be 400 guys who can't afford to do it because, you know, they're a little low on cash. And they got an opportunity to win something now. So it's, again, giving back. But then here's the other beauty part that I think David and I are glossing over slightly. The gifting that goes on in these groups.
Yes.
Like, okay, I won $6 worth of credit on poker or Deal or No Deal and said, give it to Nate. You know what I mean? Josh Blevins won a Junkyard Bug retro. He's got 2 of them. Well, give it to Nick Lapari because he doesn't have one, you know, or give it to, you know, there's such a beautiful thing going on when it comes to collecting that, like Nate said, no one's gouging anybody. No one's saying, oh, well, this is worth $20. I want $25. People are going, you know, give me what I paid for it, and I'll ship it to you.
And in the long run, you're going to get it paid forward. You know, maybe I'm looking for
exactly.
Maybe I give Archie something, and then Archie, you know, later on I'm looking for something, and Archie's like, well, I got one of these laying around, and I haven't dissected it for a custom yet. So, yeah, Nate, you can have that.
Yeah, of
course.
course.
I got this elite Aleister Black. I just made it into a really awesome Hasbro. Archie, fuck, man.
No, I didn't. All right.
To his defense, he doesn't do the elites. I just don't trust him around.
I do
Mattel
have
figures,
a rule,
ever.
yes. Do not bust up $20 figures.
I don't trust you around any elites or basics.
See, I learned a secret, actually, though. Daniel Ariola, who is one of the king of customizing in the Asylum and does amazing work, knows how to make head molds and can make the cast. So now, when I want a head that, and I know I said it, Clayton Garraway is going to make a joke that I said I want
if
head.
you want a toy head or if you want head? No,
if I want a toy head.
My Clayton came out. Sorry.
Yeah, it did. It really did. Your Clayton is showing. If I want a copy of a head, I ask Daniel, and then he makes me the copy. And this way I don't have to bust up a $20 or $30 or $50 elite, because I would never do that. You know, imagine Nate's looking for Pete Dunne, which right now I am looking for a Pete Dunne.
Please don't. That's what James O'Neill threatened to do for like a month.
I know he did. And I tried to trade him for it, and he wouldn't give it to me because he knew what I was going to do to it.
Thank God he decided to have I think we actually did a giveaway on it in the asylum. Like, thank God.
Now imagine, though, Nate's looking for one high and dry, and I know I have one. And then I show Nate my custom. Of course, Nate is going to curse me in the back of his head and be like, fucker, what did you do?
Yeah.
You know? So, I just bought a $10 Matt Riddle yesterday, and it was a basic $10 Matt Riddle, and I made it into a custom retro. But here's the thing: that was only $10. I'm not going to do that to a figure that's worth $100.
Yeah, but that's his first in the line figure. Did you at least buy a second one to keep it in the package when it goes up in value?
Of course I did, David.
Oh, man, you're taking figures that can be used 30 years from now in packaging, and freaking, there's this SNL skit that was posted in the group the other day. Funniest shit I've ever seen, and it describes me and a lot of people perfectly. Where these kids are playing with the Star Wars toys, and these guys are coming up and going, or we can just look at them. And it's like funny.
You know what? That's funny.
And they're like, I buy 3: one to open, one to look at, and one to display.
That is amazing that you brought that up, because I have a cousin that lives up in Battle Creek, Michigan. When we were kids, my parents would buy me the Luke Skywalker, and I would play with him and probably break his fucking arm in half and blah blah blah. Right. And that was what it was. His parents were smarter than my parents, because every single time they bought a figure for him, they bought one for him to play with and one for him to leave in the package. And now, my cousin has a Star Wars collection in his house that is worth over $60,000.
Jesus Christ!
We could buy a lot of wrestling figures with that.
No shit. He has the Millennium Falcon, the original Millennium Falcon, in a box, sealed.
He could buy a house with his collection.
No shit.
A couple cars.
It's amazing.
David, you up for a trip to Battle Creek, Michigan?
I mean, that's a lot of wrestling. I mean, we can get some Melwood Hogan for ourselves.
When he got that appraised and insured, and then called me about it, I called my mom immediately and said, "Why? Why weren't you smarter than that?"
Well, if I could go back and kick my childhood self, David, grab those damn Rikishis out of that $1 bin. There was 15 Bendham Rakishis in a $1 bin.
Okay.
And me and my buddy would always walk in and be like, fuck that, we want the Titantron figures. And and then the 3 for $10 green cards, which once again, we talked about this, worst series ever made, but yet the most rare. And it's like, what the fuck? It was mass produced. It was always in 3 for $10 bins.
You're saying that though, David. 3 for $10 green cards and Bendham Rikishi.
Yep.
Why weren't any of us smart enough to fucking mail away for the Hogan, Brett, and Undertaker?
I don't know what the hell was wrong with us, because they were $9.99.
They were $7.95.
We could have fucking had 50 of them bitches.
Even if we would have had one, David, each, one of the 3 each, and we would have bought one in bag, leave one in bag, and leave one to play with.
I mean, but at the end of the day, it's if I could just go back and go, look, this series sucks ass. I know you really want those Titantron figures, but those are going to be $1.50 a piece in the future. You can rebuy them. Get those fucking Rikishis, because you're never going to see one again. And the only reason you have one is because 14 guys bought it for you. Because that's the only reason I even have a Rikishi Bendham, is because 14 different dudes pitched in to buy one.
Yes,
that should tell you how fucking expensive it is. 14 guys.
Well, no, some of us got a little cheap, and myself only gave 10 towards it because that's all I had in PayPal at the time. Some guys gave 20, but yes, we did, but we did it out of love because we knew how bad you wanted it.
14 people, and I still can't find a fucking Grandmaster Sexy.
Did you ever find a Taz?
I got the Taz. I spent $170 on him, but I got
Jesus
Taz.
Christ.
Yeah, a fucking Taz Bendham.
Survive if I let you.
You could get the real Taz for $175.
The point of the matter
AEW did it this week.
And I'm not bad-mouthing the guy because I love him to death. Tyson Bono, and I told him what a big mistake he made. He traded his Bendham Taz for a green card loose Yokozuna. And I told him, do you know how many loose Yokozunas you can find? You're never going to find another Taz Bendham ever again.
I think
he has yet to find a Taz Bendham. What's that?
I think he just recently sold Yokozuna too. That's the funny part.
But he's kicking himself because you can find 500 Yokozunas, but you can't find one Taz.
You asked me to look for Taz, Nate, when David and I first met each other. Like, look for me a Taz and a Rikishi Bendham. I'm like, okay, I'll go on eBay. Not knowing how rare these things are, there's nothing on eBay. So I go back, David, there's nothing on eBay. He's like, yeah, but if you come across one. So I typed them into Google, and I'm looking, and I'm like, wait a minute, these things weren't produced that long. These weren't released in many places. What?
Except the Rock, the fucking Series 15 Rock. They made 5 million of them, but yet they didn't make any Rikishis, Taz's, or Grandmaster Sexys.
They're still making 5 million Rocks, Jesus Christ. That's all we see is The Rock, John Cena, Roman Reigns, Finn Balor.
Seth Rollins.
And Rey Mysterio.
Styles.
Rey Mysterio.
If I see one more fucking AJ Styles, I'm going to blow my brains out.
Look, kids, it's AJ Styles in the blue outfit. Oh, look, right next to him. He's in green.
Oh, he's in a 2-pack. Fuck. There's not enough AJ Styles. I did a video. Did I send you that when I told you hunted with AJ Styles?
Yep. I did. I came across it yesterday. I walked into Walmart. Dan Gleason told me all Walmarts just restocked. So I'm there looking for Matt Riddle. And I walk into this thing, and they're fully stocked with AJ Styles. Everything was a AJ Styles basic.
AJ Styles basic, AJ Styles elite,
no,
AJ Styles
it didn't have the elite. It was just basics. It was the
fuck. Someone beat you to it, man. Damn.
Yeah. So then
and then they got that kick 'em AJ Styles and that stupid series where they do like kick moves and shit. Watch those be like the figures that are $500 a piece in the future. Like the ones where like that's a piece of shit. Fuck that.
You mean the wrecking figures?
Yeah, and those will be $500 a piece because we passed on them like we did the Bendhams.
You know what I find utterly stupid? Those things are $20, but yet they have the best head mold possible. But yet on the elite, it's a wonky eye and a bad hairdo. It's like, what?
Do you guys remember those figures that talked? They're like the talking back talkers.
Oh god, yes.
The voices were like, "This is Roddy Piper," and you're like, yeah. "That's not fucking Roddy Piper."
I'm Kevin Nash.
Oh, Macho Man. Like, no, that is what?
I'm Kevin.
My favorite was I'm Ric Flair. Woo, like. Really?
You couldn't like fucking get the real. I mean, you could have even gotten Jay Lethal to do it. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
You could have got Jay Lethal to do the Flair and the Macho Man.
Talking to a mic for 3 seconds, please. You say something.
And if they made a Paul Bearer, we're good to go. I got that covered.
Yeah, exactly. All day gold.
But I mean, it's just, oh Lord, it's like the things we passed up as kids were because it's like, and all this shit that people talk about BCAs. We're way off topic right now.
That happens on the show.
That's fine. You know, I say it every week. It's my fucking show. We can get off as off topic as we want to.
But the BCAs, look, man, we didn't have fucking figures for 2 years. We had Bendhams. I love Bendhams. I didn't as a kid. I don't know why, but now I'm fucking in love with them. But we had no figures for almost 2.5 years. When Hasbro ended their contract and was going to make Series 12 that didn't come out, that you can only get in customs.
They're actually really bad, except for like the Diesel and the Jeff Jarrett. I mean, who wanted Men on a Mission? And
I would have taken another Doink though. The new Doink would have been cool.
I don't know. It was a repaint. Come on now.
It was, but it's the same difference as fucking Series 11 that just painted Yoko white. And it's like, fuck, this one's $300 more.
But Yoko was the world champion.
I don't know. He shouldn't have been. That's a whole nother discussion.
Hey, don't even start that.
But that's a whole nother show. Yoko not being.
You gotta come back next week for that.
But. There were so many people that rushed to the fucking stores because, first of all, the Series 1 Jacks and Series 2 Jacks BCAs were fucking amazing.
I agree.
You have Diesel, Razor Ramon, you have the 2-packs, you had Owen Hart, Bret Hart, Gold Dust. I mean, just fucking amazing. But everybody bought the fuck out of them. I don't care what anybody says.
They did.
All those Hasbros went on clearance, right? So we're passing on them because it's like, oh shit, I want the fucking Razor Ramon Diesel 2-pack, you know. And then as Jack's BCAs kind of went along, yeah, they got a little more shittier because it's like, all right, how many different faces can you make a Stone Cold? We got the alien face, we got the baby face, blue eye, and then we got the other face that was the only one good one they did, right? Because
don't forget the constipated look Stone Cold.
Yeah, they didn't. And then it's like, oh, we got the Melloway Stone Cold, the Toy Fair one, which just changed the shirt that said WrestleMania. That was all they did.
Right.
But people were flocking for that shit, and I was one of them. And so was my friend, and so was everyone I knew. And it's like, fuck, we could play with these, and they don't break. You know, their fingers don't come off. Like, they don't break if they hit the ground. Like, we could flop them around, whatever, right? It wasn't like the Andre the Giant who headbutted people and you fucking broke the other figure. Fuck, there goes my Hogan, right? But
where's the glue?
But it's like, if you went back in a time fucking machine, like all of us, there'd be no Hasbros on the shelf.
And we would.
You'd see a bunch of fucking Brutuses and Jake. That's it.
Yep. And Rick Rudes.
Fucking hell, even the Rick Rudes are a little more than that. You'd probably just see like the Brutus beefcakes. There'd be tons of Kamalas, lots of Kamalas on the shelf. Snuka, yeah, lots of Snukas. No one wants. Yeah, you would see all of those and be like, "Where the fuck is all the good figures?" And it'd be like Archie's house.
Right.
Snuka is my least. I don't know about you guys. The Snuka figure is my least favorite Hasbro.
Well,
I hate that
that's
figure.
a whole nother story of why he wasn't in jail, but
right.
I mean, get into that. Speaking,
they gave him a heroin addict eyeball look. I mean, I never understood the eyes bugging out of his.
Well,
I guess it was accurate. I guess it was accurate.
And why did Ric Flair look like he was taking a nasty shit? I mean,
there was one day where I have a Miss Elizabeth figure, and one day, I don't know. One day it was randomly. It's an LJN.
Oh yeah, was it the variant skirt or the regular skirt?
The regular skirt. One day I'm in the studio here at the Palace, and the Miss Elizabeth. I don't know, for some the LJNs fucking suck for display, by the way, because half of them won't stand up. But anyway, Elizabeth had fallen over, and her head was like caked on the shelf, and my wife's in there with me, and she goes, "Oh, that figure fell over. I don't know what happened there." And I said, "Oh, the Snuka figure over there cracked it into the shelf." And then I thought, God, that was the most insensitive fucking thing I've ever said. But anyway, back to 2019. I'll bring us back to our atmosphere.
Okay. I just see what you did there. I just got that. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know why it went over my head at first.
No, I caught it. I didn't want to laugh because it was so intense.
Yeah, you didn't.
Totally what he just said.
Archie didn't want to get into that Jim Cornette fried chicken atmosphere.
Yeah. I don't want to have Nate's show get canceled because of me.
But yeah, I made that joke. Jimmy Snuka killed a white lady. But anyway.
Hey, fuck Luger, by the way. Fuck Luger, but anyway.
Yeah, Luger killed Miss Elizabeth.
And fuck him too.
Fuck him.
Coming back to 2019, we talked about AEW a little bit. So the next big things that I had on my list here of things to talk about were other promotions, being, of course, my favorite promotion of 2019, which is NXT. And the resurgence of the NWA. Those two shows are my favorite wrestling shows on right now. And I just wanted to get you guys' opinion.
I'd be forced to agree with you. I mean, NXT has just been, Undisputed Era. I mean, just the amount of talent that NXT has and the shows that they put on and the stories. And it's like, the show's only 2 hours, which is great. The takeovers are just fucking good. The war games are fucking good. I mean, it's just, you can tell it's a completely different ran show.
There's so little to complain about with that show.
There's very little to complain about what they're doing in NXT because, and also you got to understand, you have two fucking genius minds and one that trained the other. William Regal is helping to run that show, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And he's a fucking genius, and he trained Triple H, right? Everyone knows that.
Right.
And Triple H is going off of his lead, and they're just running that fucking show. It's like A and B. It's like the storylines are great. And then they hand these amazing fucking talents off to Vince, and he fucking ruins most of them.
Yeah.
Gives them these really shoddy gimmicks or tries to rehash these gimmicks in a certain way. I mean, I had a friend we talked about Bo Dallas, for example, and he had no idea Bo Dallas had the belt for 267 days. He had no idea how great of a fucking champion he was and how good he was in the ring. I said, you need to watch him and Neville's ladder match.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was
okay.
Definitely a great match.
And watch that match and tell me if you think he's anything like he was when they brought him up as Bo Leave. I mean, look, you could have done the Bo Leave stuff, but anyways, not going too far off topic. NXT is probably one of the best shows on TV today. I think Raw and SmackDown have I honestly don't really. I kind of catch up and watch here and there, but SmackDown's gotten worse since it went to Fox.
It has,
which is very surprising because you'd think it would have gotten better, but it got worse.
I was gonna say, I watch Raw and SmackDown on Hulu. We don't have actual cable in my house. We're cable cutters, so we just have internet and streaming services. Which,
Smart.
I mean, frankly, we probably pay more than we would for cable. But anyway, Raw and SmackDown both. I watch my own abbreviated versions of them. I watch a show. If I get bored, I fast forward, etc., etc. But Raw and SmackDown. Even since SmackDown's moved to Fox, I expected so much more after that move. They aren't shows that I watch. The only shows that I watch to completion every week are NXT and NWA. I watch the whole show. I don't even watch AEW, and like I said in our discussion about them, it's more because I don't want 4 25-minute matches. And I skipped through a lot of their women's division. But NXT and NWA Power are the two shows I watch to entirety every week. And most weeks MLW. I will say that. I'll give MLW credit. But the NXT show is the best wrestling show on television since probably 2001.
I agree, and it's the talent, what they're doing with the wrestlers, the stories behind them. NWA gives me that I'm back in the late '80s feel.
Mm-hmm.
I freaking love it. It gives people the opportunity. It gives me the thought that I'm not saying anyone can wrestle, but it gives me the opportunity and thought that that these aren't people. I mean, they've got, of course, they're big stars and stuff, but there are some people on that roster that are schmo Joes, and they're doing stuff with them, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just the storytelling, the NXT storytelling. Like, I love the announcers on NXT as well. That's big for me. I love the announcing on that show. I feel like that if they took the talent and put them on Raw and let Triple H run it, I would never miss a Raw.
Yeah.
That was proven during the whole going into Survivor Series too.
Absolutely.
Triple H ran that SmackDown and brought NXT in, and that was the best episode of SmackDown I've watched in years.
Absolutely.
Okay? NXT from top to bottom is definitely the best show on any night of the week. You look at how many times Raw and SmackDown have raked the NXT roster for its talent, and then they've rebuilded, and it's like, well, they got rid of Finn Balor when he left, and other big name guys, but then they brought in the Undisputed Era and Keith Lee and Dominic Dijakovic, and the women's division gets replenished with all these Japanese.
And not to cut you off real quick, to go back to what you just said, the Finn Balor, look at how much better he is when he went back to NXT.
And we
just screwed him over.
We just talked about that on the last episode of the show. Aaron and Kyle and I went through our top 10 wrestlers of the decade, and of course, as we do here with the three of us, we got off topic and we were talking about the other stuff going on now. And you look at that, and it's amazing. Like Keith Lee, or Finn Balor. I want to come back to Finn Balor. Finn Balor was in NXT, and he was amazing. He went to the WWE main roster, and you can attribute it to, I don't know what they were going to do with him when he was the first Universal Champion, and then he got Seth Rollins.
It was an unlucky break.
But since then, it's been a little underwhelming. Bring him back to NXT. Everything that since he's come back to NXT has been absolutely perfect. It is utilizing him to the best of his abilities.
Right, and in a 2-hour show, where
Yes.
he's only getting like 30 minutes of that 2 hours
Right.
because he gets a match promo, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So, I mean, and yes, NXT by far is my favorite thing on. I agree with Nate. I watch it in its entirety. I do not fast forward except the commercials.
Right.
And I love NXT. I said it in a post I made. I don't really care about Raw or SmackDown unless we're leading into a pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll watch NXT any day of the week. And when it's a takeover, yeah, I'm glued to my screen for 3 hours and want to see everything these guys are going to do, because these men and women are going to do everything they can at that pay-per-view to show off.
Absolutely, and it is so encouraging that this is the future of the business.
Right, and you like you guys said, it's almost like if they were to switch NXT to Monday and put Raw on Wednesday, nobody would give a shit. You know, it'd be like, yes, we want NXT on Monday night.
I think what needs to happen, going off of what you just said, though, is NXT is the best show, but it's because who's running it, because of the talent.
Right.
But they really have to, for Raw and SmackDown, what's happening is now that NXT is coming on, before NXT was supposed to be the minor league, right? Or looked at as, right? This is where you start, then you get to the main roster. Now that NXT's on Wednesdays on USA Network, is one of the big boys, SmackDown and Raw can't take NXT talent anymore. They're going to have to start going back to what they used to do, where people debut on the rosters as brand new people. They're going to have to start training people behind the scenes and not have them on NXT to start, because what's going to happen is you're watering down Raw and SmackDown. And then I'm going to go, well, all right, yeah, I loved Riddle in NXT. Now you got him on Raw. Big whoop-de-doo. It's not really a jump anymore like it used to be.
Here's the thing, though. He's not going to be able to do the same thing that he was doing in NXT on Raw. You know, they're going to give him that bullshit entrance during the commercial break, and he's just going to be in the ring. He's not going to do his little dance on the way to the ring and kick off those sandals like he does to get people invested. And then he's going to have a 5-minute match with someone like Rusev, and they're going to end up in a time limit, in a count out or something, and then go, okay, next week he gets to beat Rusev. But then the following week Rusev beats him, but then the following week they don't even have a match.
Right.
So what did you just do for 3 weeks then? You know what I mean?
You got to the heart. You got to the heart right there, Archie, of what is wrong with main roster wrestling. And I feel like AEW's kind of falling into that trap. The biggest problem with main roster wrestling is 50-50 booking. And it's like I said, which is exactly why I said earlier that this episode of AEW this week was my favorite in months, because it wasn't 50-50 booking. There were some jobber matches. You have to
look at something though. And I don't mean to cut you off.
Oh no, not at all.
You had the match of Cody Rhodes versus Darby Allin with the debut of Arn Anderson as a full on-screen talent now.
Right.
And they played to Darby Allin's strengths. He didn't look weak in the match, not one bit. He got to hit all of his spots. They played to Arn Anderson's strengths as being that master psychologist.
Yeah, I loved the finish. I loved the finish where Arn kind of gave Cody the high sign. Yeah, that was great.
Yeah. And then you played to Cody's strengths, but also made Cody look slightly weak because he's been beat up for the last few weeks.
Right.
So even though Darby Allin lost, he didn't look like a jobber or like he was weak. He looked like he went up against a guy like Cody Rhodes who had Arn Anderson in his head, and it worked out perfectly. Next week, you can rebound by having Darby Allin beat somebody like Jimmy Havoc or Joey Janela and go there.
When I watched that match, and this is where I'm going to say, although, again, AEW is not, to me right now, it's not above NXT, and it's even not above NWA. But that's just me personally.
It's above Raw and SmackDown in my opinion right now.
It is above Raw and SmackDown.
I agree. I agree too, David. And I never, and people know I say this all the time on the show, at no point when I give my opinion on the show am I shitting on your opinion, because we are all fans.
Right.
Wrestling's just like music. You know, it's all subjective. If you like it, like it. I don't, but anyway, what I was going to say is, that match, what I likened that match to when I watched it was, this is like Bret Hart and 1-2-3 Kid in '94 on Raw.
Good call.
Which is one of the greatest television wrestling matches ever. It was a veteran beating a rookie, but putting him over at the same time.
Making him look like gold.
Exactly.
Making him look like the next up-and-coming talent.
Again, building the future like a Chris Jericho does. And that's what I respect so much about Cody is you can tell that it's just in his blood, you know?
Of course.
But also go back to the 90s and watch those shows, which you're talking about, even Raw in the Attitude Era when the advertisements were kicking up. And I observed this when I was watching. Whenever we had a big, high-profile match, like let's say you had The Rock and Stone Cold against Undertaker and Big Show, right? Example. Mm-hmm. You had your commercial break, you had your interview, you had your match, right? And then maybe there was a main event, the show ended. Or, for example, you had an interview, you had your match, you had an interview, then you went to commercial. Only occasionally, if it went like super long, like if it was a 30 to 40 minute main event, would you get a commercial in the middle?
Right.
They never cut the commercial on any matches or segments.
Exactly.
Now, WWE now today, and even AEW to an extent, I'm getting a match. Every single match, I'm getting a commercial in the match.
And some of the matches
I'm not invested in
commercial break while the match is still going on in a small little box.
Yeah.
I'm not invested. Sometimes I get 2 or 3 commercial breaks in one match.
Yes. And
I'm not invested.
That is exactly the point I was making about AEW earlier, and like you said, to Raw, is I do not... I'm sorry, but I'm just... And again, it's old guy screaming at the clouds, I guess. But I do not want 25, 26, 27, 28-minute television matches. I don't want that. I want that on a pay-per-view. That's what I expect.
If it's going to be a 28-minute match, then give me Jericho versus Moxley, or give me Cody versus Omega, or give me, you know what I mean? Don't give me Nyla Rose versus Riho for 28 minutes and give me 4 commercial breaks where 2 of them have that little box with showing me the match.
Right.
The beauty of a commercial break is I'm sure you guys remember this saying when they would go to commercial break on both Raw and Nitro. We're going to commercial, but the tape machines are still running just in case something happens.
Right.
And then they go to commercial. And while you sat there and went and got your soda or your snack and you waited, you were kind of anticipating that they'd come back and go, the match ended, but here's what happened. Mm-hmm. You were hoping that would happen somewhat. Or you'd be nervously waiting and hoping that it doesn't end.
And it was super fucking cool when they did it.
Right.
Now because they never continued a match on a commercial break. It was you had a Rock. Let's say The Rock was backstage. He did his interview, right? Then you had your match. Maybe it was a 5, 6, 7 minute match. You had your match, right?
Right.
Then you had an interview, another one, right? Or a backstage segment, commercial. Right? And then you come back and you have a match. And unless it was like a long, which they did maybe once every couple months, where you had a 20-minute main event, it was like a big main event, and you would get the commercial kind of at the beginning after they did their entrances. Right. And they would come back and go, welcome back to Raw. That was our last commercial break, so you don't miss anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And you're like, great, I'm going to get to see this whole fucking match. All we had commercial breaks was after they came to the ring, right? I didn't know shit. Right. Now it's like, well, this is what happened when we came back from break and someone's doing a hurricanrana or someone's taking a dump or whatever. I miss it.
Right.
I'm not invested anymore.
Look, I get that they have to they have to get the advertisers in, but you could do that by putting a bucket of chicken on the announce desk. You know what I mean? They've done it before with commercial-free Raw and shit like that.
They did that in the 90s. They got the commercials in just fine.
Right.
You had a 2-hour show and you still had 35 minutes of commercials.
Right.
But what they did was they positioned them to where you weren't missing a fucking thing. It was, okay, here's Sable. Oh, Sable's out here in a thong. All right, commercial. And come back. Sable versus Deborah. No one wants to see Deborah. There you go. Sable versus Deborah.
Deborah was pretty good looking when she was younger in her heyday.
I'm not a fan of the face, but whatever. But
really, you didn't like the puppies?
Sable versus Deborah. I wasn't a fan. No, he
said the face, Archie.
Okay. I wasn't a fan of Deborah at all whatsoever, really. But I mean,
damn, David. I thought, wow, okay.
But the point of the matter is that you didn't come on and it was like, here comes the Usos, here comes the Black. We'll be right back, and then come back. what's going to happen? The New Day, are they going to come back or what? We'll be right back.
Or better yet,
second fucking commercial, and you're like, all right, fuck it. I'm going to go take a shit. Fuck the show.
Or better yet, like, okay, Kathy Kelly does this interview in the back, and then they go, okay, we'll be right back. They go to commercial, and the next thing you know, the New Day's in the ring throwing pancakes because they're getting ready for their match. Like, I don't care to see the New Day make an entrance, but I didn't even know that match was coming up.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then 4 minutes into the match, you cut to another commercial break. Like, what David's saying is, we used to get 40 minutes of commercial free, and then go to commercial for 5 minutes and then come back. Now we get 8 minutes of commercial free and then go to commercial, and it's like, why?
Did any of y'all really get pissed off on those random Monday nights where it was like, tonight there will be no Raw is War. We're gonna have the dog show. Like, what the fuck?
But see, I was so little at the time. I was like 9 or 10, maybe a little older when it would happen. I'd get so pissed because it was like, wow, so wait a minute. I'm staying up on a school night, and then I find out at 8 o'clock that the Westminster Dog Show's on.
Like, fuck you. And I'm like feeling like a dick because I love dogs, but I'm like, fuck this shit. Where's my Raw?
What's even more aggravating, David? The Westminster Dog Show went on for the whole week. So why did they have to take Monday too? Why couldn't they just have Tuesday through Friday? Like, you got 4 other days. Did Raw really have to be preempted?
And then it was like, all right, they can get their fucking commercials in. And let's think about it realistically. Like Nate's point, I have Hulu, right? Or I'm going to DVR. You're going to skip the fucking commercials anyways.
Right.
So look, give me some wrestling. Stop interrupting my match 16 different times to show me a commercial about some new butt plugs and fucking just show me some damn wrestling.
All right.
Can I briefly say something? Just to backtrack to what we were just talking about, it made me have a thought. Eric Bischoff owes a lot of fucking money to the Westminster Dog Show. because the first Nitro aired on a week where that shit had been preempted.
Yep.
That's actually, you're actually right about that. And the funniest shit though, Bischoff done shot his own big toe off. Hi, I'm Tony Schiavone, and if you're going to tune in to Raw tonight, their champion is Mick Foley. And I was like, I'm changing the channel. Fuck yeah. Everyone's been waiting for Mankind to win the belt.
The kiss of death. Yes. That will put butts in the seats.
And then Mick was telling us when we saw him live, I saw him in his Hell in a Cell tour, he came to Maryland, and he's like, after that night, I was hurt. Like, my feelings were really hurt that he would say that type of stuff about me. And he's like,
knew him.
I had a voicemail on my voicemail system when I got home, and it was Schiavone. And he was apologizing on my voicemail because he's like, no, that wasn't me. Bischoff made me say these things and blah, 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 blah. And he's like, it took me some time to get over it because but at the end of the day, it helped my career because, like, what was it, 2.5 million viewers tuned over as soon as, like, the match came on? Some shit.
Here's I want to steal something here from David real quick. You say that word. If you're going to tune into Raw, their champion is about to be Mankind, who used to work here as Cactus Jack. That'll put butts in the seats, right? Mm-hmm. You did that asinine move, and everybody turned on Raw, which Nitro was going an extra hour after Raw ended anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But not to mention they also replayed Nitro when Raw went off. But anyway.
Right. So you say those words, you kill your audience by making them switch to Raw. And then you have the audacity to have it be on the night of the finger poke of doom.
Ugh.
You knew that was coming. You knew that Hogan was about to touch Nash's chest and pin him for the title.
That's what happens when you let certain wrestlers own their contracts and book themselves.
Right. No, I agree with you, but look at what I'm saying, though. Mick Foley and The Rock actually had a crazy match that night. It went like 25 minutes with DX and the
Austin.
And by the way, think about this for a second. The best announcer wasn't even announcing that night.
Right.
You had fucking Michael Cole on the announce team. Mick said that shit at his thing. He was like, I would have loved to hear, by God, he's the champion, but...
so you actually pulled that bullshit move when you knew, because they had to have known. I'm sure they got it on their copy when they were coming into work. Hogan's going to beat Nash for the title. How? By poking him in the chest. Okay. But
am I like the only one that would prefer a robotic Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby Heenan, like made into robots that actually acted just like them and announced instead of what we have now?
well, I can't stand Michael Cole. I like Corey Graves. I don't mind him. He's trying to play the cool heel though, and there was only one cool heel announcer, which was
Jerry
Bobby
Lawler?
Heenan. No, Bobby Heenan by far.
Yeah, well, he's the best, but Lawler did pretty good in that heel role.
Lawler did good, but then when he got fired because the cat got fired and he was married to her, he came back and he turned babyface, and now he's trying to pull the cool heel announcer again, and it's just not coming off anymore.
He needs to just go work with Ross and AEW. That's what. Let's give us what we all want.
The Raw announce team sucks, though. I think Samoa Joe being on it was great for those few weeks, but that Vic Joseph guy and Dio Madden or whatever his name is, they're really bad.
Yeah, Dio Madden needs to go home.
Raw and SmackDown suck. NXT's the best, and AEW is, and NWA. I think it's for the nostalgia right now. Really, we're all like living in a cloud.
But see, here's the thing, though. It's not just that they're the nostalgia. When you look at NWA, you see guys who didn't get opportunities anymore, like Trevor Murdoch, like Nick Aldis, like Mr. Anderson,
Damian Sandow.
Damian Sandow. And they're actually getting a chance to act like they want to act. Damian Sandow, or Aaron Stevens as he's going by, his real name, is making fear out of saying the word belt over and over again because he wasn't allowed to say that in the WWE.
When they first brought him out and he had the William Regal-like gimmick, fucking awesome. Mm-hmm. When he did the cartwheel and all, because Regal made that gimmick.
Right.
So, fucking awesome, right? So, and then they did that shit where he's trying to be the Miz Dow and stuff. Ruined. Done.
Well, but it was still funny. He was actually getting it over.
He was getting over, but that's because he's really good. But he should have stuck with his Triple H, William Regal-like gimmick. It was fucking awesome. He was a great fucking heel.
Killed him was letting him win Money in the Bank only to lose to Cena. But and that's not Cena's fault. Obviously, they didn't want him as world champion right away. Okay, great. But you've got guys. Nick Aldis is the perfect NWA champion right now. I hope they don't.
I love him. I love him. I love him. Like Nick Aldis. I kind of started following the NWA story before this whole power thing.
I did as well. 10 pounds of gold.
Yeah, when they started the 10 pounds of gold, with Tim Storm, and as it has evolved, I have watched it and I have become invested in it. And Nick Aldis is, I talked earlier about how I thought MJF was the best heel in wrestling, and I really do think he is. But Aldis is really, really like
second. Well, he got a slow burn as a heel. He didn't hurry up and become a heel. Mm-hmm. He was trying to pretend to be a face, but while also belittling people.
Right.
And then now he's a full blown heel with this. I guess they're trying to be the Four Horsemen, which is great. I have no problem with that. They're doing a great job of it.
And at this point, I am in no way comparing. I am no way comparing Aldis to Flair.
No, but he's doing a great job.
What I will say is, in a studio wrestling setting, with that crowd, he is channeling Ric Flair so well.
To the T.
Yes.
When he turned to the crowd this week and yelled at that guy and said, "Hey, fat boy, you don't say that."
Exactly.
I went, wow. I got chills. Like, wow, he just reminded me of Ric
That's what TNA did extremely well with Bobby Roode as well. When
yes.
they turned him heel.
Agree.
And he turned on James Storm, and he did that whole... And then when they brought him into NXT, and they gave him that awesome fucking theme, Roode was amazing. And then they brought him, once again, another main roster.
Yep.
Buried him. Fucking buried him. Had him doing the Mixed Match Challenge shit and all this other crap.
Hey, you know what? That's no big deal to do the Mixed Match Challenge shit, but let him get over on Raw and SmackDown at least, though, too.
Buried him. You completely buried him. And it was like the dude was a fucking TNA NWA World Champion for what? He had the belt for what, almost 2 years?
Yep.
Almost 2 years?
Almost.
And he ran that shit to a fucking T. Like, he was the biggest. Everyone hated his guts.
Yep.
And that's the thing when you do a story well. That's why NWA is doing well, because they're utilizing that story really well. And when you go into a place and you're like, it's kind of like that movie, Robin Hood Men in Tights, where he's like, hey, I bet, and he's like, I hate that guy, So if you go in and you go, man, I hate that guy, he's doing his job.
Right.
Like, I fucking hate that. Like, it's not like, oh man, John Cena wasted 14 years of wrestling for me. That's different. But I think John Cena destroyed wrestling.
Said on the show before, I don't hate John Cena the person. I hate John Cena the wrestler.
That makes it even worse. Like I feel like, yes, Vince kind of went to this PGG bullshit and all that stuff because he didn't have much of a choice, whatever. But I feel like Cena was like a rehash at Hogan, but it was terrible. Like, it wasn't like, because I would have taken 12 more years of even a 70-year-old Hogan over Cena, and I mean that. I would have watched Hogan and Flair like they wrestled in TNA.
But see, here's the thing, though. Again, I don't like Hogan the person, and I haven't been a Hogan fan since like '92. I like Cena the person because
92 was almost the end of his run. You didn't like him at the end.
I didn't when he beat Yokozuna at WrestleMania 9,
which should have never happened.
Which should have never have happened. He took all the luster away from Bret Hart's title reign and Yokozuna becoming champion. I felt he was a piece of shit, and that actually started for me. Someone brought it up today on one of the groups. When he pulled Sid Justice out of the Royal Rumble and proved what kind of an asshole he was, and that, which I know that was storyline, but I mean, he's done that in his entire career. On the flip side, with Cena, the guy does Make-A-Wish, he does charity work. He's actually really funny in the movies he's been in, even though he's playing John Cena in every role he's ever been in, except for one movie where
he looks like Ernest now. Just want to point that
out.
No,
the hairdo, yes, but
yeah,
him on Total Divas with Daniel Bryan is hysterical. But then you get him into the wrestling ring, and he's like, okay, he's just really watered down and not funny anymore.
Now, see, I am, and we have to take we're at an hour in this segment, so we have to take a break here shortly. But
oh God,
I'm actually like almost in disagreement with you guys on Cena.
Okay.
Ooh, shit, my ass is on fire right now because of that. But anyway.
You sure you haven't been smoking or something? I want to be smoking.
No, I have said on the show before, from probably 05, from 02 until, I'll say almost 13 with his match with Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania, or no, it wasn't, 07, his match with Michaels at Mania 23.
Worst main event ever, by the way. But anyways, go on.
I dug it. Okay, and here's my point. I think that Cena, as his career progressed, grew as a performer. He grew as a person. He grew as an ambassador of wrestling. And although he is not even in my top 50 favorite professional wrestlers ever, I think for the era that he was the top guy, he probably deserved that spot. And that is, again, from somebody that fucking hated him from the beginning. I hated him.
I loved his thugonomics. I think that was his best gimmick, and his best match I've ever seen the guy in was his last man standing match against Umaga, where he had to take the whole fucking turnbuckle off.
Yeah, that was a great match.
And choke the fucker out with it twice to beat him.
I go back to what I've said about Jericho in this show. I think that in the latter days of his full-time wrestling career, I think that whether it worked or not, based on Vince's booking and Vince's vision, I think that Cena tried really hard within the past few years to put over the future guys.
Oh, there's no denying that
Kevin
Cena
Owens.
put people over.
Kevin Owens.
I think he picked and chose, but yes, he did put over.
No denying that Cena put a lot more people over than Hogan did.
Yes.
No denying.
And Austin.
Did Hogan
and
really
Austin.
ever put over?
And Austin. Let's defend.
Well, Hogan put Ultimate Warrior over, but that's a whole nother ball game.
Hold on, wait, no, hold on, Nate. I don't mean to cut you off again, but hold on. He put Warrior over to then 10 years later have an embarrassing match with him again at Halloween Havoc and ruin the legacy of that whole match. That's the match
Warrior
that made
won
me a
again,
fan.
didn't he?
No, Hogan won.
Yeah, well, it was still that should have never happened either way because they were both past it. Well, Warrior was way worse than Hogan was in the ring.
WrestleMania 6 is what made me a fan. That was the first thing that I ever saw.
And then,
but then 10 years later, and you ruin it.
Halloween Havoc, they used like a 1940s photograph flash bomb.
Yeah, it blew up in Hogan's face, not even in Warrior's.
Yeah.
And then but see, also like you said, that's where we're going to agree to disagree. I feel like they ruined. I feel like if Vince had some brains in his head, for Macho Man, he should have had a run, and it shouldn't have been Yokozuna versus Bret Hart for the title. It should have been Bret Hart versus Macho Man for the title. I
agree.
Yokozuna should have been in the Intercontinental belt title scene or even the tag belt scene. Yokozuna should have never been a WWF champion. That's my opinion.
No, I can't agree with that. I think Yoko paid his dues to get to the title, and he had the right type of...
I think Vince liked him because he was a big guy, because Vince loved big guys, and he liked guys that can sit on people. And I think that you make a Samoan into a freaking guy from Tokyo. We all fell for it.
He never actually said that he was from Tokyo. He just said he was a sumo wrestler.
Well, he had a Japanese flag, and there was mumblings that it was Tokyo, and and the real sumo wrestler was Earthquake John Tenta, but we're not even going to get into that. But
Yoko,
in my humble opinion, Yokozuna, if he was going to have a title run, he could have had it from like maybe SummerSlam to whatever to Royal Rumble. That would have been fine, but he should have never main evented 2 WrestleManias, and he should have never held the belt as long as he did. And Bret Hart and Macho Man should have had 2. If you were going to do it, you could have had 1 year where Macho Man retained, and then the next year he passed the belt off to Bret Hart. Passing of the torch.
I'm a big Yokozuna fan, and I can't agree with you completely.
I am too, Archie.
But then you look at what he did in his later years, and look, Owen Hart is by far one of the best technical wrestlers in the world. But I think Owen Hart had a majority of his success in that tag team with Yokozuna.
I think Yoko was towards the latter part of his career, and then when he broke the turnbuckle trying to splash on Stone Cold.
Yeah, well, that was after being with Owen. That was like a year after the tag team broke up, I think.
It was around that point, but at the same token, he got to the point where his health was deteriorating, and he couldn't. And even with the Owen Hart tag team, Owen did most of the work because Yoko couldn't move around like he did in his earlier years.
Exactly, but I mean, that's the same thing could be said about with Andre the Giant, which Haku did a majority of the work when they were a tag team, because that's when Andre was starting to get older and couldn't move and do. But in the same regard, Andre the Giant was never a world champion, but he should have been.
Well, he was also undefeated for 50 years, so I mean, he had that going for him.
But who was the idiot for not putting the title on Andre the right way? You know what I mean? But we're getting off topic. I'm sorry.
You didn't really. That was also because you had Hogan with. And Andre didn't want the belt. Andre wanted to give it to Hogan. So.
Okay, but how many guys could say that they didn't want the belt but still took it? I mean, there were times where you look at Ric Flair was supposed to pass the torch to Sting. Sting got injured, so they ended up having to give it to Lex Luger. Flair said, I don't want to lose it to Lex Luger, got forced into doing it, so he up and left to the WWF, and Luger ended up being a crap champion.
Well, that's because Luger sucks, and anywhere he went, destroyed.
And Flair knew that Luger sucked, too, because he refused to. He said, I want to do business with Sting, not with Luger.
This comes back to what I was saying about Cena before we go to break here, is I was comparing Cena to Austin as a... Now, hold on, David. Hold on. Just hold on.
What?
I'm not...
Go ahead, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm not talking about as a draw. I'm not talking about as bell to bell going to entertain me more. I'm talking about as a professional. Because I just talked about Cena putting over Kevin Owens, Cena putting over anybody they want him to put over. Because again, we talked way earlier in the show about how nowadays it's just, the writers and Vince, and then that's the vision. But at the end of the day, John Cena, I don't know that I've ever heard a story of John Cena refusing to put anybody over.
No.
Steve Austin said, nope, I ain't putting over Billy Gunn. Nope, I ain't putting over Jeff Jarrett. Nope, I ain't putting over this person you want to build to be next. As much as I love Stone Cold, as much as I love Stone Cold, who's the bigger professional here?
But did Stone Cold Steve Austin hold the belt 16 times?
No, but did Stone Cold Steve Austin stay healthy and have as long a run?
Well, you can blame Owen Hart for that.
Well,
whoa! I mean, that is it.
Just saying, anyway.
You leave Owen alone.
I'm just saying. I mean, you can't do a sit-down tombstone on a guy taller than you.
But do you see what I'm saying, David? Like,
no, see, I agree. This is why I agree with Nate, David, and I'm going to have to take Nate's side on this with his opinion. Austin also took his ball and went home when they asked him to job to Brock Lesnar and to be in a feud with Ric Flair. I think they asked him to put over Eddie Guerrero one night, not for the whole feud, but one night, and he walked off. You know
what I mean? I get
Steve
your point.
Austin.
Cena
Steve
is
Austin,
a bigger professional, but he's also had more opportunities than most people.
Steve Austin is more like Hulk Hogan than he will ever fucking admit.
Well, that's never been not proven because they tried to, and they couldn't.
And I am in no way saying that Steve Austin, I am in no way saying John Cena entertained me more than Steve Austin did. I was just getting to the reality of the situation. Steve Austin is much more like Hulk Hogan than he is like John Cena.
I would say absolutely in several ways, but I would say that John Cena was pretty much it. That was all the WWE had at a certain point, at least in their eyes. So they didn't ask him to put. Ask him to put a mid Carter like Bill. And I love Billy Gunn; he's a genius, but great guy in the business, but. At that point in time, Austin felt Billy Gunn was an Intercontinental Belt guy, mid-Carter.
Right.
And he didn't want to put him over. Just like Austin didn't want to go heel, which I agree with him. He shouldn't have.
That was the death of the business and why we are where we are today.
That whole alliance crap. But anyways, I agree with you that Cena is a professional and he does a lot with the children. He is a great human being.
Mm-hmm.
You can't take that away from the guy. But what's that?
That's why I said I like Cena the human being, not Cena the wrestler.
He's a great human being. He's a better human being than the three of us put together.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
We can say that easily.
Without a doubt.
Right? But at the same token, I'm sitting there looking at the roster that you've had and your up-and-comers and things of that nature, in Vince's eyes and everyone's eyes, Cena's all I got, right? And he was, for 5-6 years there, it was, okay. And then, CM Punk was up-and-coming, so yeah, Cena put Punk over. But, I mean, at that point in time, Cena was stale.
Mm-hmm.
You get what I'm saying? He got really super stale. Like only people that enjoyed him in 2011 were kids and an occasional woman, right? But
right,
you had to put Punk over. So I agree with you, Nate. He didn't take a ball and go home. He didn't go fuck CM Punk. He's a mid-Carter. Yeah, that's fine. But if you look at what Vince was asking Stone Cold to do, and the angles they put him in out of nowhere, like, all right, well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to put you in this WCW alliance shit. I would have went home too.
Yeah, but at the same time, though, we're putting you in the WCW alliance, but you're the world champion in the WWF. You're the main.
The whole thing was just.
Company. In the same regard with Cena, there were other guys coming up at the same time. Cena broke in at the same time as Brock, Randy Orton, Batista, Triple H and Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker were still there full time.
Orton was on SmackDown. Cena was on Raw. They didn't have to put each other over. Though,
Cena does go out of his way to put whoever they'd ask him to put over. Vince had more control over who he was going to put over. But when it comes with Austin, we just talked about it with not making somebody look bad by having a great match. He could have put over Billy Gunn and not lost a step because of doing so. He could have put over Chris Benoit and not lost a step because Chris Benoit was a technical wizard.
Right.
You know what I mean? He could have let Brock Lesnar give him the F5 and walk out of the ring and sat there motionless. But he said, no, I don't want to eat his finisher because that shouldn't happen because I'm Stone Cold, you know.
Yeah, I mean, he's got his Hogan-esque qualities, that's for sure. But there are instances where you can sit down and look at Brock Lesnar was coming up, and he had his opportunities. Cena didn't put Lesnar over first. Cena had his opportunities in different areas. So, yeah. The point is that Cena is less like Hogan than Austin is like Hogan. I agree there. But at the same token, if you look at the roster pound for pound when Stone Cold was there and when Cena was there, the opportunities that Cena got, because he was the main guy, he's the top selling guy there is, right? Because we're in a PG rated mode. You know, if you put the belt on Austin 15 or 16 times and stuff like that, it would have been a whole different ballgame. You had too many people on the roster.
They certainly weren't playing hot potato with the title like they did with Cena and all the rest of them. When Austin was there, if you got the title, you were holding it for at least 3 to 4 months.
Exactly, but there was too much talent. There was way too much talent on the roster when Austin was there as well, up until 2001, right? Right? We all agree to that.
Uh-huh.
Up until 2001, when they started bringing out these outlandish ideas, and about around the time when Stone Cold, and by the way, Stone Cold put The Rock over WrestleMania 19. I want to point that out, and had no qualms against that.
Well, he came up with The Rock, though. That was they respected each other. You know, there's a difference.
But my point is that Cena has had came up in a different time, so it's like apples and oranges in terms of who, you know, we're going to play hot potato with the belt. You're going to get it back, Cena. You're going to get it, you know, in a month. You know, we're going to have Rey Mysterio beat you, but you're going to win it back. Right. You know, type of thing. So it was like, it wasn't to where, all right, well, I'm still the number one guy no matter what. You know, even when Punk had the belt, or whatever the case may be, Cena was still, all right, you're still the guy. You're still the man. You're still the, you know, it's just differences in time.
I know Nate wants to do a break, but see, this is going to be the last thing I'm going to say on this subject. When Punk beat Cena at Money in the Bank and then walked out with the title, the very next night they announced a title tournament because Punk wasn't there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was the following week, right?
We are going to do a break, but I want to address this because you brought it up, Archie. Right. That was the minute they did that storyline, and then we came out of the pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm.
The CM Punk winning the title at Money in the Bank storyline was the minute that WWE jumped the shark for me.
I agree.
Because it brought it back to me.
Brought it back, exactly. That promo that whole storyline was perfect.
Exactly, and then they fucked it up. He should have. He should have had the WWE title, and he should have held it in independent organizations or whatever.
Right. He didn't have to go to Ring of Honor or New Japan. You could have let him go to an independent show,
right?
Like, CW, whatever, and just defended the title for at least a month.
Yes.
You didn't have to do it for a year, but the very next night, we're going to crown a new world champion next week. Wait a minute, so we're not even waiting?
Right, we're not
even going to... You didn't even have to have him defended in the indies. You could have done vignettes of him with the belt in a movie theater, chilling and watching a movie.
Exactly.
Like, I'm on vacation and I got your belt. What the fuck are you going to do about it? You know,
right.
I mean,
AJ Styles in TNA, it worked out perfectly, actually.
Then you give Cena a tournament win, give him the belt back.
No, it was. See, this is where my qualm is. You let this tournament go on, which Cena wasn't even in the tournament.
Cena was in the tournament, wasn't he?
No, he was not.
But he still won. He won the belt.
That's what I'm getting to.
When he beat
you
Ray.
Let the main event of the tournament become Rey Mysterio versus The Miz. Both great champions, actually. Well done. You put it on. You let those two guys have the final match. Rey Mysterio beats The Miz. And then you turn around and have John Cena walk out and go, I'm challenging you in the next hour. What? So you didn't put John Cena in the tournament. but you're letting him you're making Rey Mysterio, who just ran a gauntlet for the tournament and beat The Miz, face John Cena. And then you let John Cena beat Rey Mysterio in 10 minutes to become the world champion again, which the only thing that saved that son of a bitch at the ending of all of it was CM Punk walking out with the title.
Mm-hmm.
So he
comes out with a completely different theme song, which was great.
The theme song, when I heard Cult of Personality, that is one of my favorite songs. When that song hit and he walked out, my mind was blown. But that could have happened a month down the road.
Yeah.
It did not have to happen a week later.
Yeah, Cena shouldn't have had another belt to begin with. He should have just came out a month later and gotten Cena's face and said, "You want this back?"
Right.
That would have been a better storyline.
What's the difference between when that happened to now with Brock Lesnar being nowhere in sight with the World Heavyweight title?
Right.
You know, it's not like, oh, the ratings were going to suffer because there was no world champion on the show. You know.
Well, I mean, how many times are you going to give Lesnar the damn belt back? But that's a whole nother discussion.
Well, that's here nor there. It's really not hurting the show. It's actually giving guys opportunities by not being beaten by Brock Lesnar in 5 minutes. But it's like, okay, he's not here. It's 2020 now. He's going to be on Raw next week, but he's not going to wrestle or anything. He hasn't been here in 2 months. So you mean to tell me you couldn't spare 1 month of CM Punk not being there with the world? I mean, he could have still been there, like David said, in vignettes or in an interview.
Absolutely.
Hey, Punk, did you sign a new contract yet? Nope. You know.
Mm-hmm. He even went to indie shows with the belt.
Right.
And, showed
but
it off.
But they didn't send the camera.
Right.
You could have pulled a flare when he had the world title on his waist.
It was the fucking moment WWE jumped the shark for me. So.
And then they were. But then TNA picked it up 2 years later, picked up the damn ball, and did it the right way by letting AJ Styles have the world title for 2 months and do Independent and New Japan and all the shows.
Right.
And then when he came back and defended it against Nick Aldis, it actually made for a damn good match.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
So with that note, reflecting on the past, we're talking about 2019. We're going to take one more break, and when we return, my last segment of the show that I want to talk to Archie and David about is the future. We're going to talk about what we think are the best moments and superstars of 2019, and who are the stars of the future coming out of this year. So stay tuned to the We Can't Wrestle podcast. We will be right back after this with our finale, rounding out 2019 and talking about the future of wrestling. We'll be right back after this. All right, wrestling fans, welcome back to the We Can't Wrestle podcast. An amazing show with David Gold and Archie Mitchell. Guys, I can't stress to you until we get into our next conversation how much I appreciate you being on the show and sharing your thoughts. And it's always entertaining. And I love having both of you on at the same time here. So we're talking about 2019 in review. And as a review of 2019, I have two guys in particular, and I talked about them kind of on the last episode of the show, but we'll go into it. I want to go into it with you guys. Who do you think in 10 years from now, being as we are breaking into a new decade here of the 2020s, 10 years from now, who do you think are we going to be talking about as the 2-3 biggest stars of the decade?
Well, I'd like to say that Ricochet will be at the top of that list. Unfortunately, knowing Vince McMahon, he probably won't let that young man get past an Intercontinental or United States title run. He's reminding me a lot of Kofi Kingston with the way that he's going to have to probably prove himself for 10 or 15 years before they even let him anywhere near a world title.
Right.
But I think that in 10 years, we'll be talking about Adam Cole.
Yeah, and that's what I talked about on the last episode of the show when we talked about the top of the decade. I actually put him at number 8 on my list for the 2010s, and I think that I agree with you, Archie. I think that Adam Cole is going to be
power.
He's going to be the top star of the 2020s.
Yep.
Absolutely. He is Shawn Michaels, Ric Flair of this generation of wrestlers, and it's a bold statement, but he's that guy.
And he came up through all the independent rankings to now finally be able to be at the WWE and NXT, doing what he did on the independent scene, and actually getting applause for it is great. But I'm afraid that if he goes to the main roster, they may water him down slightly. I also would hate to see them take him away from the Undisputed Era, because that stable came together perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
Another name I think that could be talked about in the future is Keith Lee. Again, sticking with NXT, because Keith Lee does things that no 350-pound man should be doing, like a second rope moonsault. I think that he has the ability to be one of Vince's boys.
Absolutely, and I equate him to the potential that I saw in Monty Brown / Marquise Varcon, or Von Con, or whatever the fuck he was called. I think that I saw so much potential in that guy. And then I think personal reasons took him out of the wrestling business. But I think that Keith Lee has the potential that he had. Marcus
Corvon.
Yeah, Corvon, yes. Yeah. An amazing amount of potential in that guy. I agree.
I agree with you. I also think that Keith Lee could be a mastodon like Vader.
Mm-hmm.
And he does things that nobody else can, but also comes off like a monster. So it's not like he's approachable, So and I would, because he talks really well, but I would like to see him with maybe a manager somewhere down the line to, like Vader had Harley Race, maybe give him somebody that's a legend. And then I guess on a top 3 out of the main roster, which NXT is now the main roster to me. Another guy that I think we could be talking about in 10 years, but I'm gonna do this as a whole with every company. I think we'll be talking about Cody Rhodes in 10 years. Mainly because Cody was a part of the WWE farm system, then went to the main roster. He kind of got shit on after a while, and he made Stardust work, but he just wasn't happy with it. But now what he's going to do in AEW and will do in the future, whether it's with AEW or going back to the WWE or whatever he chooses to do, I think Cody Rhodes has the potential of being a great world champion, because he was the Ring of Honor and NWA world champion for a little bit of time, and he did wonders for both those belts.
Right. So David, what are your picks for
Hulk Hogan, Macho Man, Ric Flair? No, I'm kidding.
Wrong decades.
Damn it.
You time traveled again, David.
Let me guess. MDM.
I think everyone has those same answers. I mean, Adam Cole certainly. But if I really want to, if I really want to go, I'm going to say one is Buddy Murphy.
Mm-hmm.
Good call.
Aleister Black being another, but I know right now they're kind of focusing him in kind of with Aleister Black, which it's probably the greatest feud they have going on right now on the entire main roster, if that's what you still want to call it. But I know he's kind of been doing the cruiserweight stuff, but he could, if they book him appropriately, he could be really good. I would say that if you kept the Undisputed Era together like you do the Four Horsemen, those 4 guys, Roderick Strong, Kyle O'Reilly, Rodney Fish, and Adam Cole, could be huge for a decade. They've been together on NXT, going on almost 3 years?
Yeah.
Would you say?
Yeah.
You could have them, if you book them correctly, they don't always have to have titles, but they could be a 4 Horsemen. Give them a really good manager with them. Kind of like an Evolution type of thing. They could be big. If you want to go to the AEW side, Cody Rhodes for sure. He's still kind of in the prime of his career. I mean, I think if you utilize Luchasaurus correctly, he could be big in the next 10 years. I mean, there's not a whole lot of guys his size that you can call luchador, but
right,
he's still Luchasaurus.
Right,
he pulls it off, and I mean, those are just my guys that I see that if they're booked appropriately. I mean, but the biggest would be the Undisputed Era. I mean, they're the biggest thing going right now. They all have titles. I mean, Adam Cole, I think, is the main one that can go off on his own and kind of work it the most. He reminds me a lot of Adam Page as well. I mean, those two guys. I mean, he's another one I would say that if they use him appropriately, he could be good. Yeah. But if you utilize them correctly, you can have another Four Horsemen on your hands.
Absolutely.
They've been together about as long as the original Four Horsemen was together. Because remember, they kind of were together from 84 to 87, would you say, or was it 88?
Yeah, it was. For the impact they made, it wasn't an amazingly long amount of time.
And then they kind of brought him back, but it was a totally different Four Horsemen. So I mean, but what they did, like they won all the belts, and dirtiest player in the game comes to mind. Obviously, they cheated a lot to win their belts, but that's what made them so damn good.
Yeah, but when they weren't cheating, they were also putting over a multitude of people.
Yeah, Sting, Dusty Rhodes. You could go on with all the
Horsemen lost to everybody every night of the week until it got to the pay-per-view, and then they'd win. But it was like, who didn't they put over? You know what I mean? It was like, wow.
I mean, Flair put Dusty Rhodes over more times than you can count.
I think Flair put over Ricky Morton a couple of times too. You know what I mean?
Flair's put over everybody. Flair,
and that's not a shot at Ricky Morton. Ricky Morton is a great talent, but I mean, for Flair to put over a tag team wrestler in a singles match, or a Nikita Koloff, or anybody of that nature, it was like, wow.
Flair's put over everybody. I mean,
right.
I mean, he his last match he put over Shawn Michaels. I mean,
right.
Flair is the epitome of I'm all about putting over the business before myself, and
without a doubt. And I think Adam Cole's the same way, because if you look at his last couple of years in WWE and NXT, with matches with Gargano and with the War Games match they just had, and he's willing to put his body on the line to get somebody else over.
Yes.
If Ciampa and Gargano's another one, future.
Yep.
I mean, I would put DIY back together, in my opinion, and have them as a tag team. You can do them as singles, but if you really want to grow that tag division, those two guys could be your next LOD. They could be your next Demolition. You know what I mean?
If you just brought up a great point, they just released the tag team listing for the Dusty Classic, and NXT's tag division isn't that strong by what they showed. And then they've got four teams from NXT UK, which are awesome teams. I've covered all four of them before and watched them. Right. But look at the tag, and I think you're right. I think putting a DIY back together, or putting Keith Lee and that Dominic Dijakovic guy together would be an awesome thing. And that's the only thing maybe NXT is lacking slightly. There's nobody for the Undisputed Era to really fight right now.
Right.
Well, the whole WWE's lacking in tag.
Well, that's because Vince hates tag team wrestling.
That's funny because WCW and WWF had. I mean, WCW more so because they had Harlem Heat, they had LOD, but
right.
I mean, at the same token, Vince would piggyback and grab them for a year or two because they would jump back and forth.
Right.
LOD was in the WCW and the WWF 4 different times between a 5-year span. You know what I mean? So they jumped back and forth, and Vince would pick them up, and that's the only reason he'd have tag teams. But I mean, Demolition. He had his tag teams, and even when he put people like IRS and MDM
that
together,
hatred. When did he grow? I don't know when he grew the hatred for tag team wrestling, because you look at the Hart Foundation, Demolition.
Yep. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, anytime he's ever had a huge wrestling boom, tag team wrestling's been a big part of it. Like the 80s wrestling boom with the Foundation and Demolition and the Rockers and et cetera, and then the Attitude Era with the New Age Outlaws and
Dudley Hardy.
Yes.
I don't know what made, like, you look at a team like the Hart Foundation. They didn't break up. Brett and Anvil just went their separate ways. But
Right.
they were still together up until Anvil joined Owen Hart. They were still the Hart Foundation. Demolition didn't break up; they just faded away. The only real team I could think of that actually broke up was the Rockers.
Yes.
So for Vince to always feel that in order to get both wrestlers over or to get one of those guys over, that you have to break them up and have one guy turn heel makes no sense.
Maybe he watched what Scott Steiner did to Rick Steiner. I don't know.
Right.
Too.
But that was a classic. Like Nate mentioned, those 7 storylines. Yeah. That was a classic thing to have happen. A brother turning on a brother. My God, that was shock value. So okay, that worked. But did we really need to see, guys break up that didn't need to? Like DIY broke up for no reason,
right?
Other than Johnny Gargano was injured and so was Ciampa. But in order to get them to be not on TV, let's let Ciampa kill Gargano that night. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Vince did not like WCW made. Has never liked WCW made guys, but if you look at it, even from the 80s on, he got the Steiners for a year, right? And he got the LOD for a year, and he got he got Arn Anderson and Tully for a year, called them the Brain Busters. So he at least kept them together and gave them tag team belt runs. But it's like now, it's like I can only name a couple tag teams, All
right, look at the bar. Look at Sheamus and Cesaro. Now, technically, they didn't break up because Sheamus got injured. He just returned, though, tonight, from my understanding, on SmackDown. But, okay, Cesaro is off now doing whatever he's doing with Shinsuke Nakamura and Sami Zayn.
Right.
Sheamus comes back. Okay, great. You didn't break them up, technically. Sheamus just got injured, and he's back now. Okay.
Right.
But they were a great tag team, actually. I think the only real tag team on the main roster right now is the Revival, the Usos, who just came back again, I think, tonight, because that's what I read in the spoilers. And
Viking Raiders.
Who's the Raw tag team division, really?
Yeah. The best tag team they had that they completely ruined, and it was also injury related, but they didn't bring them back, was the Bludgeon Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
It was an amazing fucking tag team. The attire was great. Harper and Rowan were devastating. And of course, they got, was it Harper that got injured, right?
Harper got injured first, and then Rowan got injured immediately afterwards at a house show, so they ended it.
Yeah. Okay. You had the chance to bring them back, and then you didn't bring them back as the Bludgeon Brothers. You just brought them back as Harper and Rowan, and then you lost Harper. You know what I mean? So it's...
Well, Harper didn't want to be there for the last year and a half, though.
If he would have utilized the Bludgeon Brothers correctly, Harper probably wouldn't have had a problem being tag champs.
I agree.
That was a great tag team. Whoever came up with the Bludgeon Brothers, whatever writer, Triple H, whoever it was, that was a good call.
They could have been a 2019 Demolition.
Yep, I agree.
And I think that's what they were trying to do with them, Nate, but I think they kind of, with the injury, kind of screwed it over after they had that dominant 6-month run, and then they had the titles. It just kind of had to fade away.
This is
you pull a 1980s and you get him. You have an angle where he gets injured really bad, or someone attacks him, right? Or maybe they have a one-off where someone gets him back, right? The faces get him back, and he's gone for 6 months, and Rowan trains or whatever. Then they come back bigger and badder than ever.
And this is not to be like a Jim Cornette moment here, but like wrestling is like WWE ADD anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Like you could have exactly what you guys said. You could have built that injury into a story and taken it over 6 months, but we don't do that anymore in wrestling. We just it is this week.
There's no long-term booking anymore.
Exactly.
They don't have plans for WrestleMania right now. They don't know where they're going with it. Meanwhile, WrestleMania is 2.5 months away.
It's sad, too, because Vince was always that guy. No matter what, with the booking of the promotion, he was always that guy that you knew, okay, well, he has a vision for 6 months to 10 months from now.
Right.
So whether we really, really like what he's got planned or not, at least we know he has a plan. And it's not like that anymore. It's like I said, it's WWADD anymore. It's okay.
You put the United States title back on Rey Mysterio. Now, I like Andrade Sin Almas, and I love Zelina Vega.
Right.
So I didn't mind Andrade beating him for the title, but you did it at Madison Square Garden on an untelevised event, which that doesn't really happen anymore. But what was the purpose of putting the belt on Rey Mysterio? Why couldn't Andrade just beat the guy who Rey Mysterio beat?
Right.
You know what I'm getting?
Isn't there rumors that Rey's injured though? That's why they did that.
He got in. Yeah, he was injured, and he was actually supposed to kick out of the finish and have the match continue, but he was so banged up, he literally told the ref on the fly, "Let him pin me." He couldn't kick out, so it was just, and which is fine. Again, Andrade should be a great United States champion, but why did we go back to Rey Mysterio then? Which again, you just let Rey get fed to Brock Lesnar, and then your reward was, here's the United States title.
Right.
Because you had no long-term booking goals for Rey, because Cain Vasquez needed Rey in his corner, and it's bullshit. You know what I mean? It's pure bullshit. And you look at guys like what is his name? Humberto Carrillo.
Yes.
I really don't know who that guy is, except for that he beat AJ Styles cleanly. But I know nothing about him, where he came from, why he's the main roster.
They gave you no story.
And then now Ricochet is taking his place because that kid got injured. And okay, Ricochet and AJ Styles, great feud, and Andrade, great feud. But are they going to fight at the Royal Rumble or not? Because we're a month out of the Royal Rumble and we still don't have a damn match made except for the Royal Rumble match of Becky Lynch versus Asuka, which that I'm looking forward to, Becky Lynch versus Asuka. But I mean, there's no other booking, and we actually had this problem at the last pay-per-view. David's done it, I've done it before, pay-per-view pick'ems in the groups. And you put the card up, and then people say who's going to win, and whoever has the best score wins a prize. Somebody asked me like 3 days before the pay-per-view, hey, you going to do a pick'em? And I'm like, how can I? There's no card. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, there's two matches announced.
Matches, man.
Yeah.
There's literally 2 matches announced right now. He's like, well, why can't... I'm like, you really want to do a 2-match pick'em? He's like, okay, well, maybe by Saturday. I'm like, yeah, I'm waiting. Sunday morning, they still didn't announce the card.
We're going to have Elias versus Chris Jericho. Oh, shit. He's in AEW. Never mind.
Pay-per-views are like a fucking house show at this point.
And then they did the pay-per-view, and it was like, what? This is what we got?
We've been on this podcast so long that NJPW is about to start.
Yeah, exactly. We can actually watch it. But you look at the pay-per-view that happened that night, and you're like, wait a minute, so this is what we got, but the Saudi Arabia show has been booked for 3 months, and we know what's going to happen?
Hell, we knew Rock was facing John Cena a year ahead both times.
Right.
Like, shit.
Once in a lifetime, my ass.
Twice in a lifetime for the payday.
And just to get back on topic, I left a name out that I think should be mentioned because he's been killing it in Impact Wrestling. Sami Callihan. If he gets to the WWE or AEW or Impact ever decides to be a major player again, which they're starting to come up again, Sami Callihan could be the future, because everything he's doing right now is a mixture of Mick Foley, the mind games of Jake the Snake Roberts, and then just being a badass altogether with his wrestling ability.
Right.
And I think Sami Callihan could be talked about in 10 years.
I agree with you guys on Adam. I think we're all in agreement. I think that as students of wrestling that aren't wrestlers, we can agree. I think that Adam Cole is going to probably be the guy we're going to talk about in a decade.
Without a doubt.
The other 2 guys that I'm going to bring up that you guys did not is, I think that, because honestly, I think that Cole is like Michaels, where right now he's a heel, but 10 years from now, he's gonna be a great babyface too. Actually, a better babyface than a heel, because he's smaller and he's a great salesman.
Without a doubt.
I hope that, I guess I will say this, based on the way he's been booked over the years. To me, the guy that could be I don't know if he will be, but the guy that could be the biggest heel of the decade is Drew McIntyre.
Could be.
If they continue to book him strong, yes.
I love Drew McIntyre. I have since he was in that tag team with Regal like fucking 14 years ago. That guy's amazing. And I've never disliked anything he's ever done. I even liked him in 3MB just because.
Oh fuck no!
No. Hold on, David.
3MB.
Hold on, David. Not the gimmick, but bell to bell. Like he's never been bad bell to bell. Drew McIntyre.
I mean, they fucked him on that gimmick though.
And again, that's what I'm saying. They fucked him on the booking. I think if you let Drew be Drew, he's the best heel in the business.
Yeah, that's what he was doing in NXT.
Yes, he's a fucking killer.
And he was actually a face in NXT, but he was still a badass.
And even in Impact.
Right.
You know? And then the other guy, before we wrap it up on the show, that I think is going to be good, and Archie, you brought up Humberto earlier.
Mm-hmm.
But another one of his relatives, and I was a huge mark for his uncle back in the day, which is Hector Garza. I loved Hector Garza. I think that Angel Garza is
I like
money.
him a lot.
He's fucking money. So yeah, Adam Cole, Drew McIntyre, Angel Garza. Angel Garza is... I'm not going to say he is. Because it's very early in his career. But he has the potential to be as good as Eddie Guerrero.
I can agree with that. And the WWE is always looking for a Spanish or Hispanic figurehead to be on a SmackDown or Raw to get that demographic in. And I think he appeals to them in a very big way. Yes, but he also appeals to everybody else. The match he just had with Lio Rush a couple of weeks ago on NXT could be match of the year candidate, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Okay, they killed it. They literally brought the house down for 25 minutes for the Cruiserweight title. Mm-hmm. And when he locked in that submission and wouldn't let go, it was like, wow, this kid's got a killer instinct that needs to come out more.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then you look at what they did with him in TNA, because he was there for like a year and a half.
Right.
It's not that they booked him wrong. It's just they didn't have anywhere to book him. And then he comes into NXT, and it's like, where has this guy been? You know, why didn't they let him do this in TNA? He could have been the greatest X Division champion known to man.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad they brought Lio Rush back appropriately, too. That stuff he did with Bobby Lashley was just terrible.
I am in total agreement there, yes.
Yeah.
I'm glad they brought him back, let him shine in NXT, and they're letting him shine now as the Cruiser champion. I mean, I've watched Lio Rush live. The dude can fucking wrestle.
Mm-hmm.
That kid deserves so much better than what they did to him the first time.
No doubt.
And he had problems. He said things that he shouldn't have. But he was from what he says, he had a mental problem. You know, something was going on there where he was having a instability problem, and he fixed it. He went home, he fixed it, he came back, and then they trusted him into giving him the Cruiserweight title right away, and he shined.
Absolutely.
You know, it was because of him they made the Cruiserweight title go to NXT instead of it just being the WWE Cruiserweight title. And then he was defending the title twice a week on NXT and on 205 Live. And having 20-minute matches with everybody and killing it. And then, like I said, the match with Angel Garza, that could have been a WrestleMania moment. If they would have been in front of 40, 50,000 people, everyone would have been cheering.
Yep, that awoke the crowd up.
Yeah.
Like you were talking about earlier about being in the crowd and, the match I'm wanting to see is like 3 hours away. Those two guys could, I mean, they are amazing performers that are the future of the business. And, you know, honestly, if we're talking about 2030, if we're talking about a decade from now, and I hate to say this because I am a fan of Vince McMahon. I mean, we wouldn't be probably recording this podcast right now
if it wasn't for Vince.
Right. But now he needs to step aside. So I'm thinking about a decade from now, and the way booking will be from now. And if I'm looking at the way Triple H books, if NXT
Right.
if NXT is the proof in the pudding of how Triple H is going to book when he controls the company, that's a bright future. And I think all the guys we've brought up at the end of this show are guys that is proven that Triple H will book the right way. So maybe a decade from now, we'll be talking about a new boom for professional wrestling.
I will agree with you on that. Unfortunately, gonna have to go back a second to the CM Punk pipe bomb promo
Right.
when CM
Are
Punk.
we cutting Archie's mic off right now? No. Go on.
Why? Why?
You know, they cut his mic off.
Oh yeah, the exact words were, and I'd like to think that this company will be better when Vince McMahon dies, but it'll probably be taken over by his doofus son-in-law and his daughter. Well, Triple H proved that part wrong, that he's not a doofus when it comes to this business. But I don't know if we're going to get Vince McMahon to step down. It, God forbid, might have to be when Vince dies that he ends up being away from the company. And then my fear is that because Shane is now back in the fold more so, he's going to want to take over, and there might be a slight power struggle.
Right.
So I agree with you. I think if Triple H took over and ran Raw, SmackDown, and NXT like he's doing NXT, and maybe differentiated slightly, like made SmackDown more of a tag team heavy show, gave Raw more of the more high flyers and the women, and then made NXT like the main focus, it would be great. But I don't think we're going to see that by 2030 because Vince McMahon would like to live till he's 100 years old, I think.
He probably will. He's got the money, and then he'll be just a floating head in a jar.
He's starting to look more and more like Mr. Burns from The Simpsons, guys.
And then he'll come out in a jar and go, "You're fired."
Actually, he's starting to look like more like the last time I saw Vince, I thought, wow, that is his dad's head on his old body.
Right.
Is he going to start flipping quarters between his knuckles soon? Because
was I the only kid in the '90s that thought he was just an announcer? Because
I did too.
He was the owner.
So I didn't know he was the owner until he, the whole Bret Hart thing. I didn't know that he was the owner.
I thought he was just an announcer.
Me too. Whenever they would come out and yell at him, like Bret Hart yelled at him before the whole Montreal Screwjob thing, and Farouk came out and yelled at him because of the racism storyline, and people would be like, "Why are they yelling at Vince McMahon? What is he gonna do? Why aren't they calling Jack Tunney or Gorilla Monsoon? You know what I mean?"
Right.
Poor Jack Tunney. The way he was treated. Another conversation.
Wait, how was he treated?
I would suggest that you take a moment when you get a chance in the coming days and read about Jack Tunney. Read up about his relationship with Vince at the end, towards the end of his tenure.
Yeah, I'm sure, but I mean, didn't he get a bunch of money from $1 Million Man? No, I'm only kidding. I know that was a storyline.
Well, everyone's got a price.
Yeah. But no, I think we have a bright future in wrestling if these companies that are going right now, like NWA, MLW, Impact, continue to grow. And if AEW stays the course like they did this past week and NXT just keeps being great, then I think we're in for a bright future. If those other three companies I mentioned, though, like the NWA, fold and we're stuck with like just Raw and SmackDown, then we're in trouble.
It'll be like, we're going to make Raw 4 hours and SmackDown 3. No!
Oh, and WrestleMania is going to span 4 days for 24 hours each day.
Vince will go, I bought them all.
I want to bring up one last point, which I didn't understand, actually. I thought it should have happened, but now I see the bigger picture. It's better to have multiple companies. Billy Corgan bought the NWA.
Mm-hmm.
And I always thought, because he did have a relationship with Impact when he, owned part of it, and then Dixie screwed him over in real life, and he had to get his money back or whatever. But then when Dixie left and Anthem took over, why Billy Corgan never tried to, when he bought the NWA, try and absorb Impact and Ring of Honor and make it one umbrella company look, I love the studio feel. It's great, and it's the '80s, and it brings me back nostalgia, and I love every moment of it. But there could have been a bigger company there, and then have a little bit of New Japan mixed in, and have a territory kind of feel to it with the NWA umbrella. I just never understood why Billy didn't try to do that right away.
Right.
And maybe do, because let's face it, if he has the talent of all those companies I just mentioned mixed with the NWA name, he'd be unstoppable.
No, I mean, think about it. What happened in the '90s to the NWA? They tried to be with Eastern Championship Wrestling. They gave the belt. They gave the NWA belt, and then it was thrown on the ground, and then that's where Heyman. You know what I mean? It's like the NWA has a history of working with companies to be pushed aside. It's a shame, but
I agree with you. But that was a very awesome moment, and it made Shane Douglas into what he was.
It was, but it ruined the NWA, and
It did,
and they were highly pissed about what happened with their belt.
I'm sure.
Because Heyman did not run that by them when it happened.
Yeah, but I'm sure you've listened to all the interviews and everything that went on with that. They were trying to totally destroy what Eastern Championship Wrestling had made and just make it the NWA, without running it past Heyman beforehand.
Oh yeah, and I mean, look at the original origins of ECW. I mean, Eastern Championship Wrestling. I mean, who was some of your main stars? You had Jimmy Superfly Snuka. That's not ECW.
No, that's not ECW. No.
Tito Santana, Arriba.
Yeah.
Dude, I used to love when PWI magazine would release their yearly almanac.
Yeah.
And I would go back and read who all the old champions in some of these companies were. And when I read the ECW roll call of who their champions were in like 92 and 93, like, what the fuck? Road Warrior Hawk was in ECW? Why? It was like, what? I'm like,
Jesus, NJPW has like 12 matches that are 8-man tags.
Yeah.
And half of these dudes look like they're in their 50s. This is crazy.
Right.
Anyways, that show started. I'm sorry. It's on now. We've been on so long, NJPW has started. Let's do play-by-play commentary. Old man walks to the ring. He's coming out. He's waving to the fans. Okay, sorry. Go on.
So, gentlemen, I want to thank you both for being on this 2019 review of the We Can't Wrestle podcast, a review of the year 2019 in wrestling. And I think that the future of wrestling is bright.
I agree.
Agreed.
And I hope that's the truth. I really hope for 2020, as we go into 2021, my biggest fears are that AEW gets it wrong, because I want them to get it right. You know what I mean?
Right.
We all do.
And my biggest fears are that WWE / NXT gets it wrong. I don't want that. I don't want that momentum to stop. So, that being said, I want to wrap it up with either one of you with any of your closing thoughts on tonight's show.
Did we break the record for longest podcast?
3.5 hours.
Yeah, we both did 3 hours the last time. So.
Ooh, I don't know. When I put it together tomorrow, I'll let you know.
Okay. As far as my closing statement, I love being on this show. I love how we can, and with David involved as well, talk and go into, go off topic as quickly as possible, like go off the rails. I think wrestling does have a bright future. I don't think that NXT is going to get it wrong unless Vince McMahon takes over NXT and forces Triple H out and tells him, this is my company. I'll do whatever I damn well please. AEW has a chance to get it wrong, but here's how. If they continue to let Tony Khan be involved and want to be in the camera. I don't mind if Cody becomes the world champion and the Young Bucks become the world tag team. They are some of the best talent. They deserve to be champions.
Right.
But I think if they have Tony Khan get too involved and they continue to push the women's division, which is very green, down our throats, it's going to turn off more viewers. They have great talent on the roster for the women's division. That Chris Statlander and Bea Priestley are great.
And that goes back to my match and screen time point. Like, they have really good women's talent, but does every match have to be 25 minutes long?
No, it doesn't. It could be 10. It could be 15. It could be 8. If you're going to book Nyla Rose to be a monster, let her destroy someone in 2 minutes. Don't make me sit through a 15-minute match that she loses.
Yes.
But, they have talent on the women's roster that I think they should push more as a more main event feel and leave the more greener people. And that includes Riho, because I don't care if she's Kenny Omega's girlfriend or not. She doesn't need to be their world champion. I hate Britt Baker. Sorry, Adam Cole. I love you, but your girlfriend is annoying. Every 5 minutes she says, I'm a dentist. Huh?
She's also a dentist. Come on, man.
Dude, she mentions that every 5 minutes.
She can knock your teeth out and then fix them. Come on.
Mm-hmm. She literally walked up to Riho at in the middle of the show and said, "You haven't been here, and I've been carrying this division while also running a dental practice." And I literally looked at the screen and went, "You haven't won a match yet. What do you mean carrying the women's division?"
Dr. Iris Yankum.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. But I think AEW could get it wrong, yes, but I think they'll probably get a 2 to 3 year run out of it, no matter what.
And I hope they are successful.
I do too. I enjoy watching. I have no problem with watching, but give me more pros than cons. That's my feeling with Raw and SmackDown. You give me way too many cons. That the Raw had a great match with Ricochet and Andrade on it this week. They had a decent women's tag match. They had a decent, a couple other matches. But then you killed it with the boring matches and the crap storylines, and then that ending was atrocious. SmackDown last week was okay, but nothing great. I haven't watched this week's SmackDown yet. But let me praise something. Let me say, oh, well, seeing the Usos come back and save Roman Reigns made it all the more better to watch because I got to see the Usos come back.
Right.
So, in closing, I think that wrestling has a bright future, but I think there are a lot of landmines around that they need to avoid.
And David, your opinion?
Just two things. One, I need to watch more NJPW because I don't know who 7 of the 8 guys are that are in this ring right now.
Is it the Battle Royal? Is that the opener?
No, it's Justin Liger's retirement match. 8 they're starting to show off with that. So, but I don't know who 7 of the guys are. But anyways, and as 5 of them look like they wrestled in the 90s,
okay,
or 80s even. 2 just signed gold. But I thought that was funny. I guess I'm the only one. Laugh inside. That was to Vince, just signed gold. I guess it. Okay. I think in closing, I think AEW is going to get it 1,000% right if they continue to be their own brand and do their own thing. They have their crossovers with NJPW. Moxley's on NJPW right now. So they're working in conjunction. Cody needs to go to some people, and Khan needs to let them run it and stay out of it and just enjoy the show. WWE needs to fix Raw and SmackDown by incorporating NXT. Honestly, I would if I were Vince right now, I would probably take Raw off the air for 3 hours. I know it's the longest running episodic program, but I would probably move my show just to Wednesday nights, and I would probably make the main roster, NXT itself, right? You could switch the shows theoretically, but I think 3 shows is going to make people get a little stale. You have the talent to run 3 shows, but the shows aren't. The storyline and the storytelling isn't good enough to keep me entertained for Raw nor SmackDown. So what I would do is if you could do one or 2 things: take NXT and put it on Raw, get rid of Wednesday nights and just have it Monday night, or you can say, you know what, I still want to compete against AEW. I like beating them in ratings. I want to continue this. Make NXT your main show, or you can even make Raw the main show, but let Triple H run it. Take a step back and look at what NXT is doing. And I think this year NXT is going to start beating Raw in ratings. And then that'll be when Vince finally starts to put 2 and 2 together. Or you got yourself another Jerry Jones.
Now
go ahead. That's all I got.
My reflection is, I hope I kind of agree with both of you in that I think that the biggest takeaway from this show is that we all 3 agree that NXT is the best brand in wrestling.
Agreed.
And what I hope, and this is from a business perspective, NXT nor AEW have, to this day, exceeded 1 million viewers per week. So my hope for 2020 is that one of those 2 promotions exceed 1 million viewers pure week. Because until then, they're not proven to the people that are advertising on those shows. And I especially want NXT to do that. So, NXT is my pick for the year. And like both of you said, I want Vince to acknowledge that. And I want AEW to expand. And that being said, let's wrap up this edition of the We Can't Wrestle podcast. Archie, David, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having us on, Nate. It was my pleasure.
Appreciate the 5 hours we've been on. Good stuff. Guys, this show has went into the bathroom, out to our cars. I mean, a lot has happened that you do not know about.
The beauty of broadcasting.